Okay, listen, welcome everyone. Welcome to our new team captain seminar. How many of you in the room here are brand new teams, never run this race before? Okay. How many are brand new team captains, never organized a team before? Okay, so you're all in the same boat. Those that have been on teams and are just a new team captain, that's a task in itself. If you're brand new to this race, never done it before, well, then welcome to a new challenge for yourself. I'm Chuck Foote. This is my partner here, my assistant. This is Tony Adler. And between the two of us and the Glendale Police Department later this afternoon, we're going to try to give you as much information as is humanly possible in a short period of time to give you a leg up on trying to conduct yourself through this race. Getting here this morning, certainly for me, who I normally do not drive into LA this time of day, and I bank on the fact that it's going to take me over an hour to get here, and I only live 25 miles away, so you know it's tough. Get used to all of the different challenges that are going to come your way as team captains for new teams or existing teams. The race today, for the most part, known as Baker to Vegas. You'll see it every place. You'll hear it lots of places. That was not its original name. And I'm going to take a minute here just to give you a brief history of the race that's gone on now. This is its 34th year. And 34 plus years ago, my partner, Larry Moore, and I decided that what was being done in Death Valley, and there had been a race in Death Valley for 6 years prior to this, was a good idea and could use expansion, could use a different location. And when that race ended, and it ended abruptly, just as though you were sitting here right now and I was a team captain, the coordinator of that race walked in and said, "I'm retiring, race is over, here's your money back, goodbye." Walked out the door. And that was the end of the Death Valley Relay. This race came about because of that race and its concept, its ideas, and we just expanded on it. But we called it the Challenge Cup Relay. For a long time we did, Larry and I. Baker to Vegas just happened to be the two locations of where it started and where it finished. And over the years, it sort of morphed into what you call it today, the Baker to Vegas race. I've been asked many, many times, and really don't have a clear answer for anyone that says, why do you do this? Why do you drive all the way from El Paso, Texas to here today to conduct this race? Why do you do that? Now I understand, competitive teams. I've run on competitive teams. Tony and I are probably one of the last few standing persons attached to the record team that ran in 1993, 4, right in there someplace. So yes, I'm a competitive runner. So I like to run races. I've run all over the world, lots of places, and run lots of different styles of relays. But of the 7,000 plus runners in this race, 7,000, my outhouse guess, and I'm usually not wrong with this, is there's about 10% of those people who you would classify that's a runner. That's a competitive person that runs all the time, races everywhere. That's a competitive runner. That means there's 6,300 people here who are not competitive runners. And of those 6,300, there's 1,000 in there that are just good-hearted volunteers. They're volunteering for you to do something they normally never do. Run 5 miles, run in the middle of the night. They're just doing it because you've asked them to. Not that they're runners at all, perhaps, but they're going to do this. So in trying to explain to folks, why do teams do this? I have a hard time, really do, to say, why do you do this? Why do you spend $5,000, $10,000 getting yourself to Las Vegas, organizing a team? For this is a team coin today. Don't leave here today without picking up your challenge coin. 1 per team. So that's what these are. Do you do it for that reason? Some people collect coins. I walked into Sheriff McDonald's office one afternoon, and he's got thousands of them. If I quizzed him and said, "Where'd you get all these?" I don't think he could really answer all of them. Some folks collect these things. I don't collect those things. I don't collect anything, or I'd have a house full of stuff, and I plenty now, and I don't collect anything at all. Is that the reason why people do this? I don't know. So the Challenge Cup came about because Larry and I thought it was a good idea, and we began to expand, look for a course. And when we first initially looked at the course that you're going to run, the town of Baker hasn't changed in 100 years. It has 500 people there. It'll have 500 people 100 years from now. The town of Shoshone, which is a gas station, market, all rolled into one, a post office, a cafe across the street, a small 7-room hotel, okay, and a campground. That is the town of Shoshone, nothing else. There's no cell service there. That's it. Drive over to Pahrump, about 25 miles away. Pahrump has a population today of about 50,000. When we first started this, it had 5,000. And the only people that lived there grew alfalfa and were farmers and had nothing to do with Las Vegas. Now today, people live in Pahrump and drive to Las Vegas. So they've built a nice 4-lane highway all the way from Pahrump into Las Vegas. Times have changed for them. Las Vegas, as a town, started off when we started doing this as 500,000. Today it's over 2 million. If Larry and I had brains in our head then, today we would have bought property in all those areas and we'd be millionaires. But we didn't, and here I am today. So the race has gone a long ways. 19 teams the very first year we did this. There are more of you in here today than ran the first race in 1985. Over the years, just kept moving and moving. Today, as we sit here right now, it's 282. But I know that in the period of time between right now and the race, that will shrink as reality strikes. And reality will strike you when you go from 25 runners to 22 runners to 20, and then to 19. And then what do you do about that? This is what happens. And it's an unfortunate thing. I feel for you, but I know it's going to happen. It'll happen to more than a few teams. So you have to be right on top of things to say, is everybody okay? No one's hurt. No one's broken a leg, stubbed a toe, whatever. So it's a lot of challenges, and that's the reason why when Larry and I talked about a name for the race, that just came about. Baker to Vegas just morphed from there. But challenge, absolutely. This will be a challenge for you. It has already been that. It just gets more intense as you get closer and closer, and people start sort of waffling on you. Those you depend on, maybe those still rock solid. Those that you're not sure about, well, that's another story. If you're a small agency and you've got everybody in one roll call at one time, it's pretty easy to say, are you okay? Are you okay? But when you're spread out over several miles, several hundred miles maybe, now the only contact you have with somebody is a telephone call or an email. Now Tony's much younger than I am, and he has an idea that he's trying to go a little further with. This is fine. I'm not one much for text messages. When you start text messaging me back and forth, I just say, stop. Hey, call me. I'm right here. I can talk to you much easier than punching the keys on this telephone. But text messaging perhaps is the way of the future, who knows. But as you'll hear me in here say, and I've probably said it a number of times, If I call you and you see my number flash up, answer the phone. Don't say, okay, I'll just text message back. No, answer the phone. Because I'm not calling you to say it's a nice day outside. I'm calling you because you have a problem or I've got a problem with you. Something's going on that I've got to talk to you. So cell phones are an interesting device. You can get a lot of information out of them. But as you've already discovered, I certainly have, people do not answer their phone. They just let it ring. They look at it and say, I don't want to talk to that person. Click it off. Email them back. Text message them back. It's crazy. We'll get into communications both today and in this meeting just a little bit. So this is great here in Los Angeles. In the town of Baker, it'll work. But once you leave Baker, that's the last time it works. It will not work after that. So turn it off, put it away. When I turn mine off and put it away, and when I end up in Pahrump, Nevada, about midnight, I turn the phone back on and there's 50 messages. Hey, I need to talk to you right now. Well, it's too late. If your problem was 4 hours ago, it's too late. I can't help you. So I get all these messages, just hit delete, 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 get rid of them. So it is a tough task for you. But that history over these 30 years, the race has grown many, many-fold. It's taken me from a few weeks, maybe a month or two, getting it ready to all year long. And it just goes round the clock. This race will finish on the 18th of March. Takes me 30 days to count all the noses and bring all the equipment back and find out what got lost, broken, didn't come back, pay all the bills, do all of that, write an after-action report. That chews up the entire month of April into May. Then I try to relax the month of June. Then July starts back up, and I get these messages from people. Hey, we heard about your race we'd like to run, Minneapolis. There'll be a team this year, come on in. There'll be a team this year from Detroit. Now, Detroit is not a police department that just, you go, wow, that's a department of runners. No, it doesn't ring that bell. They're running in the race because the chief of police of Detroit is a former LAPD something, James Craig, who for the last couple of years has said, we want to do this, we want to do this. Well, he's finally convinced somebody there, and 20-somebodies, that they're going to do this. So the word spreads around, and we get all kinds of folks running in the race that have never run it before. So sometime around June, I get all these messages from people that would like to do this. And when I tell them, hey, it costs about $5,000, $8,000 for you to do this. It takes 20 runners, not one, not 10, running twice, but 20. All of this and probably 20 support. It takes a team of about 40 to 50 people to make this happen. All of a sudden they go, well, wait a second, that's more than we can do, and they decide against it. Others, they're hard charging and they want to do it. Next thing I know, they're asking me more questions. So it can happen. That chews up the month of July. August, it begins. So around the clock, this race that I thought would be a good idea and a lot of fun has become a doggone near full-time job. I retired from the police department here in LA in 1997. So this is 21 years of retirement for me. And it doesn't feel like retirement. In a lot of ways, it keeps me right here. Now, 21 years of being gone means I don't know anybody in the police department with less than 20 years. I don't know them, and they don't know me. They've heard of the race, maybe they've heard of my name, but they don't know me. So the only people I know are the ones that have 30 years on the job, and I know them. So I know the chief, and I know several of those other people. That's about it. So my touch with the police department is slowly disappearing. Tony, on the other hand, here, he's still working, so he knows folks, and that's good for Tony. He's going to need all of that, and every bit of the friends and folks that he knows in order for him in the future to take this race over and do this. So the Baker to Vegas race, a pretty fun event. Larry and I thought it would have been great to do, and I've never changed my opinion of it ever since. So I welcome you here. I welcome you to this challenge that you're going to undertake. The more time that you spend at organizing your team, the better you'll be. The smoother the operation. If I turned all of the lights off in here, all of the lights, blank out the windows, and told you, find the front door and get out, you'd fumble your way through all of this and you'd eventually get out. If you have a flashlight, you're prepared, you walk right out without a problem. If you're prepared in this race for everything that could possibly happen wrong, you're ready to go. And I'll give you one quick, easy example, and then I'll turn this over to Tony. Follow vehicles. Rented follow vehicles or your own, whichever the case may be. You're driving on the shoulder of the road a great deal. This is desert. It's not sand, it's rocky sand. And once in a great while, somebody will hit a sharp rock and have a flat tire. So if I told you to go outside right now in your own car that got you here, your police car, and said, change the tire, I'll hum Jeopardy while you watch you do it. Some of you would succeed. You've done it before. Others, you'd go, I don't know. Where's the jack? Where's the spare tire? How do you get that tire off? I had a flat tire driving out to meet the Barstow Highway Patrol. Drove into one of their shops, and the guy says, where's the key that unlocks those lug nuts? I said, buddy, I have no idea. This is my wife's car. Don't break anything, because I'll get in a lot of trouble if you do. I have no idea. Didn't know they had such a thing on those things. I don't change flat tires. So they finally fixed it and figured it out. So changing a flat tire might seem dirt simple, but out there in the desert, when you get it, and the guys driving the car just get out and say, let's call AAA. I don't think so. No AAA out there. You get stuck in the sand, you better have a shovel with you. So funny things happen, but you got to be prepared. The more you're prepared, and you're ready for all of those problems that'll happen, you'll get over all of those difficulties, and you'll run smoothly through this race. You won't get any sleep, I'm sorry. That'll happen to you. And you'll be there Sunday afternoon exhausted, and your team will be having fun, and you'll be tired. But that's what you're bargaining for here. Any questions about sort of the beginning of all of this? No? All right, I'm going to turn this over to Tony. He's going to talk about what went wrong for many people last year.
Thanks for coming out, wherever you drove from. Thank you very much. My name's Tony Adler. Currently, as Chuck said, I'm still with LAPD. 28 years on, going to be retiring hopefully in June this year. I've been with Chuck for over 20 years learning this race, trying to see what he does basically on a part-time basis. And as much as I've been with him and around him, I probably know about 10% of actually how to put this race on. That's what's involved in this. It's just a huge undertaking to take this on. So hopefully I can pick up his shoes when he decides to retire, which he said is going to be next year, and we'll go from there. Today I'm going to talk just a couple minutes on the rules. And we sent you out that email that you hopefully were able to download those copies we sent. We didn't want to make copies for everybody, but I think you've pretty much printed them out. And you know, when you talk about the Bible of this race, it stems from that rule book. And the rules that have been developed in that rule book have come from years of people basically messing up. You know, when Chuck originally started it, he started out with a few basic rules. But as time progressed and things started to go wrong, he plugged them with some of these rules. And so I'm going to go over just a few of them today and kind of tell you where people go wrong and what can happen to you and where it may put a hiccup in your get-along as the race approaches. And I'll start out with, if you haven't had a chance to read that rule book, I would highly suggest you go to the website, print it out, read it up, and it'll help you understand a lot about how this race is run. So I'm going to start on, there's basically two sets of rules. The rule book itself contains the runner rules, the follow vehicle rules, and general rules. And we'll cover a couple of those now. And then on the other side of that, there's some ancillary rules that can affect your team. Stupid things people do outside of the race that the race committee gets a hold of and associates that violation with your team, and you get dinged for it. And I'll go over just a few of those. But in Chapter 3, this deals with the general rules, and some of the highlights from last year is one of the big things is the volunteers. So when you pick your volunteer, make sure it's a dependable person that will actually show up to the event or to their actual stage that they've been assigned to volunteer at. The volunteer itself can be, we hope it's a sworn person. It doesn't have to be. But make sure it's someone that's dependable and that will do what needs to be done and show up on time. We had one violation last year where the volunteer just said, screw it, I'm not showing up, and the team got DQ'd. So a lot of hard work goes into that, and if they don't show up or just blow it off or don't do what they're supposed to do, that can cause you a lot of heartache. So pick your volunteer carefully. You'll submit that name to us, and then I think it's about 2 weeks prior to the race, we'll have their email address, and we send out specific instructions to that volunteer. And you as a team captain will be CC'd on that one. So once that email is received by the volunteer, just double check with them, make sure they got it and they know what to do. And those instructions will be very specific. The other one is we had 4 violations of this where no catcher shows up at the exchange point. Now the catchers are designed to get the runner as they cross their finish line for that particular exchange. They get caught by the catchers, they are assisted, they move to a certain location, make sure they're okay. The reason we do this is we just don't want to leave the runner out there by himself. So the catcher's responsibility is to get the runner, hold him, walk him off, get him to a safe location, put him in his car, take care of him, make sure he's got a ride back, those kinds of things. Every once in a while, the catcher is not there. Now, it could be for a particular reason. They got caught up in traffic, which happens quite a bit because the roadway is very narrow, and so it's hard for the catcher to leapfrog to the next exchange point to be there in time. So that happens once in a while. But not a lot last year. 4 violations is not too bad when you think of how many exchange points and how many runners and teams we have. Let me see, anything in Chapter 3? Start line, sworn volunteer. We've had a few incidents of trash left out on the race course. And usually it's like the week after we get notified from CHP or Caltrans that there was some trash or residue left over from the race. So if you can, please make sure that, if you leave stuff out there, water bottles, whatever it is, that when a runner drops something off, he's running in the middle between exchange points, he drops a water bottle out. If you've got the time, pick up the trash and put it back in the follow vehicle. Let's try to keep the desert just like we found it, as clean as possible. Oh, we had to add one rule. Like I say, we expand on these rules when needed. One of the rules we just added a couple years ago was the use of drones. We had to put that rule in there. A lot of people wanted to come out, fly their drones around. Turns out you need a special permit to do that. And we didn't want it to interfere with our air support or any of our race rules. And so there is a section in Chapter 3, it deals specifically with drones. No drones allowed basically on the race course. Chapter 4 deals with the runners themselves and their conduct out on the race course. The ones we had issue with last year, we had 3 violations for runners checking in late. So, not too much of a big deal, but if they show up real late, then they've got to run to the RV support group, make sure they sign the back of the bibs, fill that information out, and sometimes the runner that was supposed to hand off the baton to them has already arrived. So plan accordingly, make sure your runner has plenty of time to show up at that exchange point. Some issues in the past is middle of the night. It happened to my team. We had a couple of my runners sleeping in the car. They fell asleep and forgot to get out or just woke up too late. So that happens quite a bit. Here's the big one. We had 23 of these last year. And this is basically nothing that you can prepare for other than educating the runner, is that when a runner goes down, either because of heat or some kind of medical accident, and they go down between the stages, and an alternate runner gets out of the follow vehicle, picks up that baton, and takes off, that's a 10-minute penalty associated to your team. So we had 23 of those. That's quite a bit. And I would guess, I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure that's all related to heat during the daytime hours between stages 1 and probably 9. This is when we have most of our medical emergencies. Again, there's nothing that you can do as a team captain other than educate the runners that are running in the daylight hours on how to hydrate properly. And Chuck will go over that later on, about not only hydrating prior to the race, but when that follow vehicle follows the runner, that the observer in that follow vehicle closely monitors that runner, make sure that he's not getting into any difficulty because of the heat. Now, cramping, we understand. That happens quite a bit. But we've had a lot of instances when it's really hot, the runner goes down, we got to medevac them out by air. And that it causes a lot of problems, obviously not only for the team, but can you imagine the angst and the difficulty that the family has to deal with, trying to find out what happened to their loved one that's now sitting in the hospital. And I've been to a Pahrump hospital where they've been flown into. All there is a pair of running shorts, and that's it. Nothing else with them. Team captain's out on the road, taking care of the team. And so now we have to make arrangements for that runner to get safely back to wherever. And we've got to try contact you as a team captain to make that happen. So again, education for that runner, primarily the runners that are running in the daytime hours where we have most of our dehydration problems. That's a key on that one. And we had a few of these. We had 3 of these last year. The bib number on the runners not properly displayed. So they're going to have a bib number front and back. Make sure they don't fold it up that you can't see the numbers. They've got to be flat, that they can be viewed by anyone. Anything on any questions on those rules that I've covered as far as the general rules and runners rules? Okay.
We had a question.
Yes, sir.
On the volunteer,
Yeah.
we have a guy who's going to volunteer, but his wife is also going out to this. Is it okay for her to assist on the volunteer?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
The more the merrier.
Okay.
I have a question about the catcher. You said, is it mandatory that we contact one of the paramedics? Because I always do that when I catch people.
The paramedics are at every exchange point, so they will be there monitoring the runner as they finish. You don't have to contact an EMT, no. Okay. They're going to be there monitoring and surveying and make sure the runner's okay. They'll do that.
You mentioned a 10-minute penalty associated with the alternate runner taking over. Is that going to be covered later, how to deal with that, or what's the proper manner in which to?
I'll tell you right now, the way to do that is to put the alternate runner inside the follow vehicle. Okay. So you may have to, if you have more than, Chuck will, I'll talk about the follow vehicle crew. You should probably have at least plan for 3 or 4 exchanges of follow vehicle crew. And you do the same with the alternate runner. So you'll have maybe 4 alternate runners at different points throughout the race, just in case. If the runner goes down, the alternate would get out of the follow vehicle, pick up the baton, and off he goes to the finish line. Does that answer that question? Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
We have a volunteer who's not sworn that's willing to help, but at that time she'll be about 4 or 5 months pregnant. We don't know if there's a possibility of like maybe asking for a spot where she can be accommodated.
I can't guarantee anything like that. The way Chuck does this is the first team that pays gets the best choice of assignments. The last team that pays gets the worst. So I don't know where you guys paid. Hopefully it was close to the beginning. Check with Chuck after the meeting's done, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, follow vehicles. Let me talk just briefly on the follow vehicles themselves. Later on in the day at 2 o'clock, after this general meeting's done, we'll come back in here. Hopefully you'll all stick around. But Glendale PD, just down the road from us, they are going to assemble their follow vehicle, fully decked out. They're going to bring it up here to the academy, and we'll go over there, and their follow vehicle drivers will basically give you their 411 on how they do their team. And they'll explain to you about the electrical system, how to set it up, what falls off, what doesn't fall off. So it's a pretty good demonstration. I highly recommend you stick around for that. In dealing with your follow vehicle crew, again, make sure they dependable people. You'll have a follow vehicle driver. Seated next to them is the observer, who will primarily be responsible for looking at that runner, making sure that they're properly hydrated, watching out for their welfare, basically. And then again, you'd have an alternate in the back, and maybe one other person that deals with ice and water and drinks. So technically, or typically, you would have maybe 4 people in that follow vehicle. The recommended follow vehicle you use is going to be a, what's the name of the follow vehicle, Chuck?
What's that?
Follow vehicle type? Tip of my tongue. Huh?
Minivan.
Minivan. With a sliding door on the side, obviously, to hand out drinks on the side. That would be your best follow vehicle. We don't want to use anything too small or anything too large. No diesel trucks as follow vehicles. Minivans is what we recommend and hope you use. Okay, the penalties last year for follow vehicles. We had 4 of these not responding to your FRS radio. Every team will have an FRS radio, probably 2, inside that follow vehicle. And it'll be tuned to a certain frequency. And the use of that FRS radio is to communicate with the team either in front of you or directly behind you. The radio frequency doesn't go very far. It's basically line of sight. And it's used to communicate, to help each other on the race course, basically pass each other. So if you're coming up to another runner, the follow vehicle observer will get on the radio, say, team number 1, we're approaching. Make them aware that you've got a runner coming by their van, and you'll do the pass safely. Okay? That's not meant. Go ahead.
Let me pause Tony a second there, because the FRS radio, we will have communications people in the room today. If you've never seen an FRS radio, little family service radios, they buy them in a Radio Shack. This is a battery-driven FRS radio, not a rechargeable radio. It's real important. Don't buy the wrong one. So you'll need 1 in that follow vehicle. And that Tony is right. That is communications. Follow vehicle to follow vehicle. Our rule enforcers, our motor officers out there to the driver of that follow vehicle. Because they'll do things occasionally that they shouldn't do. Drive too far to the left, not follow their runner close enough. These types of things happen. So the FRS radio is there for communications. I'll be on the race course. Tony will be on the race course. We have rule enforcers on the race course. When I come up behind a follow vehicle that I know is not doing the right thing, then I get on the FRS radio and I start trying to talk to the driver. And when I don't get the driver's attention because they've turned it off, or there's too much noise in the vehicle and they can't hear, then I have to drive up alongside, roll the window down, and yell at you. And I don't want to have to do that all night long. So FRS radio, real important to have. You need one of those in your vehicle. We'll talk about team communications later on in the day, which is also very vital to how you operate. But that FRS radio is a real important thing, and you have to have one operational.
Okay, so those are some of the basic rules that people had issues with last year. There's obviously a lot more than that. I would highly recommend you read that rule book carefully. And so those set of rules are made specifically for the race itself. I mentioned some other rules that can do some damage to your team, and we've had these in the past. As you know, teams travel a lot of the teams travel from Los Angeles up to Las Vegas on that Friday. And we tell the CHP out at Barstow, they know we're coming through. And of course, you get some idiot going 120 miles an hour along I-15 freeway, where he gets stopped by one of the CHP officers, tells them he's associated with the Bacon Vegas race. And there's two options. Obviously, you don't want to ride another cop. But at the same time, we've got to, maintain public awareness out there. We've got to look good for the most part. So those CHP officers have been instructed to either write a regular citation violation or inform the rules committee about that person driving and what team they're associated with. That usually has more sting than just a regular ticket. So that's one thing that can come back and bite you. Some of the other examples are people inside the follow vehicle. I mentioned the car that you're going to be using. The sliding doors open. People like to get out, stand up on the side, and talk to the runner as they go by. Just doesn't look good to the public. We had a person out of Pahrump one year, saw our follow vehicle personnel standing outside the car, standing up. Obviously a safety issue. They started taking pictures and printed out in the newspaper. So it's these type of things that are not really related to the race, specifically for the run, but it comes back and looks bad on us. So you have to stress to everyone associated with your race, whether they're runners, whether they support people, whether they're family and friends, you've got to be aware that the public's looking at us, more importantly because we're a law enforcement race, and we don't want to draw any attention to ourselves on that. Any questions on rules? All right. I'm done.
Tony's a speed reader and a speed talker.
And I guess you don't, any guesses my accent? No.
A winner. We're going to give him back one day. Back to the history for a moment, because Larry Moore passed away in 2003. Larry was a motor cop on LAPD for long years, 13 or 14 years, and came up here and worked as the athletic director, and unfortunately died in a motorcycle accident. But he died in 2003. But prior to that, Larry was a fanatic for the history of the race. And if you go on the website, you can read the history of the race from start to now. He did that because every now and then somebody would come up to us and start chatting away, and next thing you know, they would say, and this is what happened in 1992, and this is why. And Larry would look at him and say, you weren't even born in 1992. What are you talking about? You weren't on the job then, so you have no idea what you're talking about. You heard that from this person to that person to that person. When rumors come about, and you've heard something about the race, and you want to know if it's fact, call me, contact me. I will tell you exactly what the situation is. Anyone else, you're getting guesswork, and quite often, absolutely wrong. So Larry was such a fanatic about that, he decided he would write that history, and that is his work there. All I do is edit it for the next year to the next year. But other than that, that's all of Larry's handiwork. And that term, just the facts, that's all Larry. Tony's right. The rules are easy, Simple, straightforward. And no matter how simple and straightforward I tried to write them and create them and get them on that information out there, I still get questions. Can I have music on the last 3 legs of the race, 18, 19, and 20? And I said, you read the rules? Well, yeah. It says no music. That means no music. Even though today it started out, if you'd gone way back in the past, you would have seen a ghetto blaster taped to the top of a car, and that was music. Well, now today, of course, everybody's got an iPod or they've got some other device. And I have to say, hey, listen, no device. The last 3 stages of the race are in the town of Las Vegas. While we pay for and get 65 Las Vegas Metro officers, that's their part of the town, that's their responsibility. They police it, they work for us, they control all the major intersections, but they don't control all the driveways. Then there's hundreds of driveways. We come through there from 1 o'clock in the morning until 8:30 in the morning. So for 7 hours, we're zooming through that area. Oh, I'm sorry, 6.5 hours. So we're coming through that area in that period of time. That's the lightest period of time we can find. Desert Inn and Fort Apache are only known to the locals that live in Las Vegas. If you've traveled to Las Vegas, you didn't go out of your way to travel down to Fort Apache, and you sure didn't drive on Desert Inn because there's nothing on it. It goes over the 15 freeway. Is that right? Over the 15 and underneath Las Vegas Boulevard with no on-ramps or off-ramps. It's perfect for us. But at the same time, you have to be paying attention. Your follow vehicle driver has to pay attention. Your observer has to pay attention, because you're only going to get one brief moment to say, watch out, here comes a car. So that's the reason why there's no music. And we insist on it. So if your last 2 or 3 runners cannot run without music, change their leg. Put them on something else. And as I try to tell people, if you can't run 5 miles or 6 miles or 4 miles without the assistance of this armed ghetto blaster, well, then you're in pretty sad shape. You know, you're going to have to think to yourself and hum to yourself if necessary. Organization of a team. Take a look at that material I gave you. And everything that's in here, just about everything that's in this handout, are the things that I've gleaned off of other teams. What makes the race so interesting, I always look for suggestions, lots of suggestions over the ways from you people that run teams and organize them and try to make it happen, to the people who come out on the race course that are the volunteers that say, this works, that doesn't, give us this equipment, we don't need that. So I don't try to invent everything here by any means, nor will Tony. This team coordinator's checklist is a good framework for you to go by. You come from different agencies, different situations, you'll create something different for yourself, but create a checklist. Again, Larry used to love a checklist, and he had one in his pocket all the time. And when it came time for us to pack up, he'd get out that checklist and say, did you bring these things? Have you got pliers? Have you got a flashlight? Have you got all these things? You got duct tape? All of these odds and ends that Larry would go over. Create this checklist for yourself. This is a guidepost to go by. Some of the stuff may seem odd and peculiar. Toilet paper. You don't think to bring that here. I think we can provide that here. Out on that race course? Maybe not. Much depends on what time does your team start. Teams start by ability. Has anyone in the room here looked at your ability and thought you could run under 15 hours? Okay. If you thought you could run under 15 hours, I can tell you right now, you're going to start at 4 o'clock. And if you start at 4 o'clock, you're the last flight to start. By the time you reach stage 2, all of the porta potties have been used by 7,000 people. So there's nothing left. Okay? So if you don't bring that yourself, then you're poorly planning this. So, odd things like that. Workable FRS radios. I'll talk to the teams today that says, go back through all of your follow vehicle equipment left over from last year. You put it in a box, you put it away, and you haven't touched it since. Did you take the batteries out of the FRS radio? Because if you didn't, 1 year sitting in those FRS radios and all of the corrosion that starts is going to make them useless. So check all your equipment. Copy of your ID card. We need an identification. Recently, an RV support coordinator that worked for us for well past 20 years, a guy named Ray Best, just passed away. But his wife, Janet Best, said something once to me, and I thought it was always so funny, that here is a civilian who now says to the cop, let's see your ID. And she thought that was just funny. She laughed and laughed at that, and I thought, well, you know what, that is pretty funny. You have to have your ID. When your runner checks into the station where they're going to run, they're going to say, let's see your identification. And occasionally, somebody will take their legitimate credentials out there and then lose them. And then they write me back later and say, hey, listen, you know, I lost my credentials somewhere between 3 and 4. And I said, well, if it wasn't turned in, I'm sorry, I don't have it. You can go back out in the desert and look for it, but your chances of finding it is pretty slim. You need to have either your identification that you're sure you're not going to lose, or a photocopy of it. And you, the team captains, gather right now a photocopy of every one of your runners, so you have it with you. So when your runner gets to the stage and says, oh my God, I left it in the hotel, I don't have it. They call you, get a hold of you, and you've got it. Or your team catcher has it, which is probably the best person to have those copies of those IDs they're responsible for, the catcher has. So the catcher can say, wait a minute here, I'll go back to the car, I've got a copy of your ID. Save you the hassle, save you the penalty.
On that, could they use a picture on their cell phone of their ID?
That might work. I haven't tried something like that. The question was, would the picture of your cell phone work? Yeah. Yeah, the person's going to look at that cell phone photo of you, your police identification, and they're going to say, okay, yeah, that'll work. If your cell phone will turn on out there. I'm assuming it will. You just can't make a phone call with it. But the phone itself will turn on. You can get power to your phone. Good idea. And I'm sure that will increasingly over the time work faster and faster. Many people consider me a dinosaur, of which I take great pride in that. I am a dinosaur. I'm 70 years old and still kicking, and 21 years of retirement. So I'm perhaps a dinosaur to such. I don't do that on my cell phone. I wouldn't have a clue as to how to do that. I've seen it done, but I don't do it myself, don't know how. And whether I'm too old to learn now or not, I don't know. At each leg, and the process as you begin to figure out how are your runners going to get to their stage, how are they going to run it, how are they going to get back. How many in the room here have 20 runners driving their 20 personal cars to their leg and then going back to work or going home or going wherever they're going? Does anybody have that circumstance? It's an ugly one, because then you're really dependent on people to get out there. If you're not going to do that and you're going to organize picking them up at a hotel, taking them to the race course, and then bringing them back, now you're layering yourself with an organization. A vehicle, a dependable driver, a dependable group of 4 runners or 5 runners. And there's much to depend on there and lots of organization to do. On the website today, there is a waiver release form. Be sure you go to that form, download it, print yourself a copy or two. Every one of your runners must sign that. As a backup, this is me as a team captain of years ago, I would have everybody on my team sign that. Even people that you never think of as a runner. Because when worst case scenario comes up and you're short a runner, you're going to go to your driver and you're going to tell your driver, go get your shoes, go get your shorts. I'm going to drive the car, you're going to run. I can't run. Well, I don't care if you walk, but you're going to finish this leg. So get everybody to sign. If you're coming from an agency where they're scattered all over Christ Half Acre, be sure they get a copy of this. They can go on the website, same as you, download that copy, sign it, scan it, send it back to you. At the team check-in Friday night, Friday evening, Friday afternoon, I should say, in Las Vegas, at the Westgate Hotel, will be where you're going to report, and you're going to bring that one document. That's the only document that we need, is your waiver release form. You're going to turn that in. We're going to give you a run log. You give that to your follow vehicle crew, and you say, this is the official run log. Don't spill coffee on it. Don't lose it. Bring it back to the finish line as soon as the last person crosses the line. Turn it in. Okay? So the waiver release form is the only one that we need when you check in, but we will ask you for that. Without that, you can't get your run log. On here is a note about vests, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But this is a checklist. It kind of gives you a rough idea what you need to do. And it's good to give this checklist maybe to all of your folks and say, this is what I'm going to ensure happens. If it doesn't look like that to you, and all of a sudden they say, well, wait a minute here. I don't want to get picked up at 5 a.m. I don't want to get picked up at 4 a.m. I like to sleep late. I like to get to my leg 5 minutes before I run and come back. No, that's not going to work. Yeah, you're going to have runners like that. And you have to decide, are they valuable enough to keep, or are they not so valuable to keep? And when a person becomes such a pain, pretty soon you say, maybe you're not so valuable to keep. Why don't you just stay home? Somebody's got to work, you stay and work. Oh, I see a note in here about a no-show. No-show runners. You plan on it, and all of a sudden you get a phone call. You're in Las Vegas, it's 9 o'clock Friday night, and you get a phone call from your runner who says, I can't make it. I'm rearranging the sock drawer tomorrow, can't make it. Sorry. You scramble around and you're trying to figure out what to do. Well, that gives you some time. If you get that notification in the middle of the race that your runner at 12 or 14 isn't going to show, now you're really in a bind. What do you do about that? So no-show runners. There's provisions for no-show runners. It says that you can replace your runner on the race course. If the leg has not started, you could replace them with your alternate. That's up to you. We'll go through the process of what the alternate does, but that's up to you. If you're running in the stage and a person goes down, well, there's different sets of rules to that. Down runners. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. But no-show runners is a term we use in this race. There's a 3-page portion in the information I gave you. It talks about a budget, money. You've paid $2,200 to this point. Today, and believe me, today, pick up your t-shirts. If you haven't done that, pick up your t-shirts today. You get 25 t-shirts, 1 running baton, and a great experience for $2,200. Half of the teams in this race, there's 282 teams, half of those teams will come out with a mug. They'll win a mug. Half of them don't get a mug. Some of them finish near last, if not last. So they get nothing out of this except what I just explained to you and hopefully a good experience. These are some ideas. These are some costs involved in teams that have run in this race. What it costs them. And this first one that says itemized Baker to Vegas budget, $5,311.39. That's probably a pretty good average of the minimum amount that it takes to do this. Okay? Handle it, Tony. Real important. Maybe the backbone of this race is the fact that you're all cops. And for a lot of reasons, that makes things very interesting. And the most interesting part of this is whenever you deal with money. I think I had 2 years in the job or something like this and working Rampart Division, get a radio call, walk into a hotel room, get into the next room, sitting on the bed is a great big pile of money. And I thought, okay, something's really going to go wrong here. There's either one guy behind the door with a machine gun, or this is a setup, and they're looking at me trying to say, what am I going to do with all this? Money is always a problem in many ways. The accuracy of what you do is vitally important to you. There's only one fall guy here. You screw up, there's one fall guy. They're not going to look for the guy that ran 14th on the race. They're going to look for you to say, what'd you do with this? Where'd you get this? Who did you get this from? So be sure that the money that comes into you, I run on the retired team. The retired team has no means of income. We're all retired. So the coordinator of our team says, okay, it costs this much money to put the race on. Come up with $100. So each of us pays $100 and we run the race. That's how we do it. How do you do it? Where do you get this money? Some folks find it very easy. I gave you the handout from Beverly Hills PD. Look at their bottom line. $15,160. $5,000. 3 times the difference in money. They do 3 times the difference in what they can do for a team. What have you promised your runners? Nothing? A good time? A shirt? Pair of shoes? A hotel room? Their gas money? What have you promised them? And what can you deliver? But however you design your budget, design a budget for you. Take this budget to your superior individuals, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, chiefs, whomever, and say, I've prepared a Baker to Vegas budget. This is what's going to cost us. We've paid the entry fee out of our whatever fund. That's the $2,200. We would like to have a shirt. We would like to have the fuel money for the follow vehicle. We'd like to have these things. Can you help us? Where do we find dollars? And this ranges everything from, here is the chief of police who says, how much do you need? Well, we need $3,000. Here's a check from me to you, $3,000. That's one terrific chief that would do that. Now you don't have that responsibility. You could still have to itemize what you do. You have to write checks. You've got to pay bills. Because you don't want the race to be over with, and here comes a phone call from somebody who says to the chief of police, hey, your team ran in the race. They charged $75 for these radios, and they didn't pay. Their check bounced. Their credit card's no good. Now the chief gets that message. How long before he calls you in the office? 30 seconds? What happened here? Why wasn't this taken care of? So, the pay for all of this, very important. Larry was many different things in this race, but he was the king of being an anal individual. He was the best because he was meticulous with what he would do. If that's not you, if you know that's not you, then you better find somebody in your organization who is. Give them the responsibility of the checkbook. I see all the checks that come in for Baker to Vegas, and a great many of them are written West LA, Baker to Vegas running team. So I realize somebody's created a checking account. Okay, good. Makes things a little easier for you. So be sure that the money in and the money out is accounted for. Many of you have probably worked assignments where it was your job to go out to the public and look for financial support for some organization, some activity that the department was going to do. So you know how tough that is. You know what it feels like to tell somebody this is what you need, yada, yada, yada. You do all of that, and they say, sorry, can't help you. Okay? So be sure that the people you're going to talk to, if you're going to do this and haven't done it yet, are individuals that your superiors, your commanding officer say, yeah, you know what, go ahead and talk to so-and-so. But don't talk to this person. We already talked to that individual. They already give the max. They're not going to give more. Don't go there with a big sob story. Don't get out the Kleenex and start crying, because we don't want you to do that. So be sure you make all these contacts first before you start knocking on the door. And if you're going to stand in front of your station with a box of donuts and sell them for $10 each, be sure you tell the chief that's what you're going to do. He might agree with you. He might also say, no, we don't want you to do that. And Tony's right. We don't make the news. In all the history of this race, I think we made the actual national news once, when Lee Baca passed out and went to the hospital. That made the national news. I looked at it once, and it said, a little buddy tape below, Sheriff Baca passes out, goes to the hospital in the cop run. That's what they called it. And I thought, okay, at least we made the news. Sorry about that, Lee, but we made the news. Other than that, no, we're not going to make the news. Shoot somebody? Absolutely we will. There was a shooting in Las Vegas last year, right on the Strip. Bellagio, I've forgotten exactly what hotel I was in front of. All of a sudden, I'm out at the command post in the race course, and I see the news flash up. It says, shooting in Las Vegas, and Strip is shut down, hotel is closed. A few minutes later, here comes phone calls. Hey, we can't get out of the hotel. You're a cop, and you can't find your way out of the hotel? It's on lockdown. Okay, I got that part, but you still can't find your way out? So we had to deal with that problem that occurred there. We didn't make the news. The shooting sure did, but we didn't make the news. So that's the way it is. So, yeah.
We mentioned the nonprofit
LAPRAC, this organization here, the Academy, is a 501c4. To be a charity, you're a 501c3. We are a nonprofit membership club. True, we're nonprofit, that's for sure. So when you go to a sponsor or you go to somebody and they say, well, what are you doing? And I say, well, we're running this Baker to Vegas race. Is it a charity? No. Do you do it for a cause? No. Why do you do it? They're going to ask you the same question. Then you have to come up with your answer about why do you do this? But it's not a charity. So you sponsors cannot write off the money they donate to you as a charitable contribution, because if they do, they're going to come right back and say, give us the tax ID number, and is it a 501c3? And when you say, no, it's not, they're going to say, give us back our check. Sorry, we can't donate to you. Advertising, absolutely. You go to somebody and they say, can you advertise for us? And you say, yes, we can. We'll plaster it on the side of our follow vehicle. Eat at Joe's Snack Shack, whatever, you know. Yes, you can do that, and if they can write the money off in that situation, then you're a winner and so are they. Any questions there about how that works? So budgeting and money, a big, big deal. You can do the race and have lots of fun, but what you don't want is the bad vibration when you get back to work. And you might not even get back to work before they call you and say, hey, we're getting phone calls. What's this all about? So be sure that your budget is absolutely accurate. Go back in after the whole race is over, after you've paid all the bills, take a look and say, wow, we did this for $5,000, or it cost us an additional $150. I tell team captains every year, don't reach into your own pocket and pull out money because you'll never get it back. You just won't. Now, if you don't care, well, that's the way it is. But don't think for a minute that if you reach in your pocket and say, okay, we've got to fill up the follow vehicle here, and I'm going to reach in here and pay $40. Yeah, chances are you'll never see that $40. The next handout there, it says B2B 2013, important information. What I'm giving you here is an example of information that goes from the team captain to the members of your team. And everybody's important there, everybody. So you want to be sure everyone has the information and they hopefully read it. At one time when I would send out all information, I had a part in the computer where it said, let me know if they open up this mail. Well, I send out hundreds of mail all the time, and I finally got tired of doing that because I'd get all those responses back. But at the end of the race, and a month or 2 or even 3 months later, I'll get a message back. And it says, this person did not read this mail. Like 6 pieces of mail. I go, okay, why did I send it to that individual? They never read it. So if I were to quiz people and say, I put something in the minutes of the last meeting, did you read it? Did you just scan it? Not pay any attention? I get people writing me back once in a while and say, hey, you misspelled a word. Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad you read it. That's something, that you recognize I misspelled something. Okay. So when you put out information, you have to keep your fingers crossed that everybody reads it and that it is important. This is an example of a command post that a team sets up. Now, that's a foreign language to a lot of people. I've run millions of races all over the place, and if I said, okay, where's your command post? They'd look at you and say, command post? Yeah, you know, your headquarters, where everything, oh, headquarters, oh yeah, well, that's it's over here. Where do you have your command post? Where are you on the race course? I know where you're going to be Friday evening, but where are you on the race itself? Do you stay back in Las Vegas and keep your fingers crossed? Are you out on the race course? Where are you? Your team needs to know because they may be looking for you. They want to know where you are. Again, the steps involved in organizing how the team gets out there. That's what this is partially about. We're talking about weather conditions. Once in a while, people will ask me, what's the weather going to be like? I said, what, you think I'm weatherman here? I can guess March. The race is in March for an absolute logical reason. It should be cooler in the month of March. We have done this race as late as the last weekend in April. We're stuck to a couple of big issues that determine when the race will take place. And I had a lot of people say, do you know that this race is on the LA Marathon's weekend? I said, yeah. Why'd you do that? Well, you think I did it on purpose? There is a big car race at Fontana. So they'll ask, you know it's on the day of the Fontana 5,000? I said, yeah. Okay. Make your choice. You want to be a car fan? Go to the car race. Otherwise, next case. The date of the race is determined by, first, we're going to do this in the month of March because we're at the coolest time of year, but still avoid rain and snow if we can. Heat is an absolute problem. Even in the best of conditions, 65 degrees outside right now. And would a person have a problem if they weren't prepared and they tried to run hard? Yeah, they could have a problem. But if you add 100 degrees outside and said, go run as hard as you can, then we really risk problems. So we've moved that race from what was a once-in-a-while race done in April to the month of March. Determined by when is a hotel available, when is that big convention room that they have at the hotel available, when can we do this race? That is how the race date is determined. Not the fact that it's St. Patrick's Day weekend, not the fact that it's the LA Marathon race. Two teams that have been traditional for this race can't run this year. Beverly Hills PD, Santa Monica PD, both impacted by the LA Marathon. And I had an LA cop the other day say, that's LA Marathon weekend? I said, yes, I know. I said, I can't help that. Well, we're going to lose X number of personnel. I said, we have 10,000 people. Okay, we're going to lose some that are assigned to the LA Marathon, and I can't help that. But that's how that race date's determined. But nonetheless, medical, and you'll hear it a little bit today in the regular team captains meeting, is a vital part of this race. And it's there because we're trying to avoid hurting anyone. You have to go back to work. Me, I got to go back and help raise my grandchildren, but I don't have to go back to work. You do. We don't want to hurt anyone on your team, you, or anyone else. This mentions vital parts of the race logistical plan. It talks about shuttle passes. It uses that term. It means nothing to you most of the time. I will mention it again today because a stage in this race, on the top of Mountain Springs Pass, stage 16, at the very, very top, where there is no space for anything, we have squeezed into a small area and made that an exchange point. There is an archery range there. I've done this race forever. I didn't know there was an archery range there. Driven past it 1,000 times. Until I needed an exchange point, and I started really searching hard and found it. And from that, what we do here is we rent that space and we use it as a place for your vehicle to park, your runner 16 to run, your runner 15 to be picked up. One car, one pass, one situation only. So it's one thing for you to say, okay, here's my general plan of how I'm going to get out on that race course, how we're going to move 20 runners until we reach that 16th runner. Now I'm giving you a new wrinkle. Face the problem. How are you going to get your number 16 runner to that spot, pick up number 15, and get on your way? You will not have time to go from 16 to 17. You won't make it. You won't get in and out of there fast enough to get to that next spot. So your shuttle plan has to be changed, has to be altered. And you got to start thinking about that now. Who you have, how you're going to do it, who's going to run 16, who's going to run 15. This plan also mentions a few traffic controls out on the race course, and they're accurate. When we first began this race, it was a 2-lane road from Pahrump to Las Vegas. And we ran all the way down that 2-lane road, all the way to Las Vegas Boulevard, turned left, and went to the Hacienda Hotel. How many of you remember the Hacienda Hotel? How many of you never even knew it existed? Well, there was one there. One of the original hotels of 1,000 years ago. And when I walked in there the very first time, I thought I was meeting Guido from movies. It who said, what do you want to do? And I explained it, and he couldn't believe what we were going to do. The Hacienda Hotel existed then. There were no traffic, no lights. It went all the way over the freeway, turned left, and went to the Hacienda. Now today you couldn't do that. No way. Impossible. But still, stage 16 is a tough spot. To make a U-turn on Highway 160 between Pahrump and Las Vegas, you can only do that where it's signs posted saying you can make a U-turn. There's a few intersections along the way where you could do that. But if a person just decides they're going to take their four-wheeled vehicle, drive down the gully, up the other side, is going to find out there's a cable there and you can't. So they've changed the road over these years. So it marks information here and tells people, don't do these things. This goes out to your runners. Last point it makes here, it says no alcohol. And they're absolutely right. No alcohol. Zilch, zero, none. No tolerance. A team gets caught doing this, you're disqualified from the race, you're removed from the race course, and you're not invited back. Over this long period in the history of this race, that's only happened occasionally that a team has ever been disqualified. But the disqualification to a race, to a place in the middle of nowhere, maybe it doesn't matter. It matters here. It matters here that if some member of your team causes a problem of that magnitude, it vibrates right back to the agency. The agency is notified. If necessary, their internal affairs organization is notified. They'll come out to Las Vegas, they'll do their investigation, and you know what happens from there. Very, very important. So alcohol is an absolute killer. We don't allow it in any way, shape, or form. So be sure you pass that information along. I once ran with a guy that, this was a race we ran in Texas, 2 spots in the middle of nowheres of Texas. And we're going to go out to dinner. And I said, okay, let's go out to dinner the night before. And he said, no, I'm going to be in the room. And I said, well, what for? He says, I like to have a 6-pack of beer before I'm going to run this. I said, okay. I said, you and I don't know each other, but let me explain to you the ABCs here real quickly. 1, not going to do that. If you can't run without doing that, you've got a much bigger problem than I can help you with. So if you have somebody on your team that you know has this propensity or this problem, and you've got to get to them real early on and say, look, you've got to control yourself from this point to this point. What you do at home is your own business. But from this point to this point, you've got to be able to stay within these rules. You can't do that, tell me right now, and I'll leave you here. If you have somebody on your team that is a short-temper hothead, then go find a muzzle. I put that on my dog once in a while. Go find a muzzle and fit it for him and give it to him. And say, you wear this, because we will not tolerate you causing us, other 19 runners here, to take a penalty because you got a short fuse. We do not allow anyone to yell, be aggressive, whatever, to any of our officials. None. If an official tells me, hey, team blah, 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 at this stage, had a runner come up to us, and because he didn't have his ID, he was ranting and raving and screaming and yelling, I say, okay, fine. No problem. Here's a penalty. Here comes a penalty. You'll get called into the rules committee and you'll say, you're going to take an hour penalty. You're going to go from 3rd in your category where you would have come up on the stage, you would have got your mugs, and you're going to go all the way down here someplace. And you're not going to get a mug. And you're not going to come on the stage because one guy was a jackass. You know you got one, you got a choice. Muzzle him or leave him home. But don't bring him out there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chuck brings up a point about the traffic out there, and I'll give you a brief outline of how the freeways are. From Las Vegas down to Baker, Highway 15, speed should be normal. Once in a while, they'll have a traffic accident on that freeway coming into Vegas, usually on that Friday. All traffic is stopped. But usually race morning is not a problem getting to Baker. The moment you leave Baker out onto the race course and begin the run, it's a 2-lane road all the way to Pahrump, which is stage 10. Stage 11, actually. So here's where you're going to need extra time to get your runners to those locations. For the follow vehicle, I would triple the amount of time you would think it would take to get to Baker and out to the start line, which is 20 miles up the road. And I'll probably do the same for the runners. So plan accordingly to get plenty of time for them to be at the location. Once you leave Baker, you're out on the race course. Normally, most of the traffic is going in the one direction of the race course. You'll have the straggling vehicles coming the other way. It's normally runners that have finished their leg and now going back to Baker. And occasionally you'll have a truck that uses that roadway for business. But for the most part, when you get to those exchange points, you'll be blocked with traffic. It could be a mile long. Very, very slow going through there. You're going to have patience. And that's where you're going to lose time. So plan accordingly. Make sure that the runner gets there with plenty of time to spare.
Tony's right. There's no place fast. If you leave, how many have ever tried to drive to Vegas on a Friday afternoon? Ugly. My good friend John Marnell lives in Victorville. And he always, if he wants a few laughs, he drives out and watches all those slow-moving cars moving at 10 miles an hour trying to drive to Vegas. If you leave after 12 o'clock from LA to try to get to Vegas, it's going to take you 6 hours. 6 hours. And you will miss the registration, and you'll probably miss some of the meetings because it'll take you so long. And I get these messages that says, I'm stuck in traffic, there's an accident. Yeah, accidents all the time on those freeways. So be sure that your plan includes leaving early Friday morning. Earlier the better. I mentioned in the agenda, and I want to touch on this right now, what is your goal? I know what you're doing it for, at least I think I do, but what's your goal? Is it to win a mug? How many want to try to win a mug? Okay. How many just want to get through it without any problems? Okay. So set your goal realistic. If it's to win a mug, it's because you have done some studying. You have looked at the results of last year. You have figured out that if you entered this category with this ability, you got a chance. You've done that. If you've done that kind of homework, congratulations, you've done some work for yourself. You have figured out what it takes. If it's to get through this race without any problems, that's a good goal. But establish a goal. Make sure that all of the people on your team know what the goal is. As a team captain of long, long ago, here at Training Division, when we tried to win, I would bring everybody involved in the team together like this, and I would say, I want to win. Do you want to win? Yes, maybe. Well, then get out. Get out right now. Very simple. I want to win, and I'm going to win. I'm going to crack the whip on you. I'm going to crack it on myself, but I want to win. And if I want to win and you want to win, we're all going to work hard at it. I don't want 18 guys working their rumps off and 2 guys taking it easy. So what's the goal? Get everybody to buy in on the goal, and you'll get it. You'll get that mug. You'll finish without any problems. You'll have that situation. But you got to have the goal established that's realistic. Once in a while, somebody will say something. I said, listen, I'm sorry, buddy. That is not realistic. You're not going to break 3 hours in a marathon when you run a 60-minute 10K. Let's do the math. That doesn't work. So, sorry. You want to do that? It'll take you 3 or 4 years of training, and then maybe you have a chance. So make sure that your goal is realistic, establish it, and you have a shot at it. Sworn volunteer. We use that term and have for so many, many years. I've never decided to change it. Even though the volunteer that you give me can be non-sworn. But here's the key to all of this. And the reason why we even established the term sworn volunteer in the first place is if they work around you, they work at your division, they work at your station or your agency, then they're attached to you. And they realize that if I select you, and you know what the responsibilities are, if you screw up, we get punished. And that's the way it works. Much like you when you went through the academy, if you had one person in your class screw up, everybody got punished. Works the same way here. So the sworn volunteer is a person you give to me for the race. They get assigned to a task at an exchange point, and they're there to work. Every single exchange point has an officer in charge. That officer in charge puts everybody there who is the volunteers to work. They report back to me. Everything went fine, Chuck. Stage 7 worked great. Bring me back all those same volunteers. And I try to do that. But if he reports back to me and says, everything worked good except this one team. Showed up late, left early. Okay, what's the team number? Blah, blah, blah. All right. Bring that to the attention of the Rules Committee. Say, punish this team for that reason. Contact the team captain and say, don't bring that person back. Find me somebody else. Because they have screwed up and I don't want them back. Occasionally, we get that kind of individual. But it's very occasional. So if you want to use somebody that's non-sworn, that's fine. The job that we're going to give them to do isn't that tough. But it has to be done. If you're going to give me somebody who is non-sworn and does not work for the agency, they're your friend, well, now you're going out on a limb. How close a friend are they? Are they so good a friend that no matter what, they're going to be there? No ifs, ands, buts, no maybes, no excuses whatsoever. They're going to be there. If it's that kind of person, fine. We'll take that individual. The assignments at the stages can be good, they can be ugly, it can be nighttime, daytime, same as police work. And I got a lot of requests. Hey, I'd like to work stage 9. Okay, that's the middle of nowheres. That's a tough assignment. You want that? I'm going to give you stage 9. Somebody says, I want to work the start line. The start line is a 10-hour assignment. Then they go, whoa, wait a second here. 10 hours? Yeah, you got to be there 1 hour before the first start. Starts at 8 o'clock. That means you're on watch at 0700. And you don't leave until the last team starts. That's 1600. Gather all the equipment and then leave. Take a look at that. That's a long day in the sun. No restaurants, no Starbucks, none of that. So is that what you're looking for? We'll see. In the inverse order in which teams paid their entry fee, I will make these assignments. That's how that works. First team that pays, and I get people that say, how much is the entry fee? Well, I'm not quite sure yet. Well, the first time you know, you let me know because I'm going to be right there with a check. I want my volunteer to have their choice of assignments. Okay. I get teams that do that. 15th of August it opens up. Here comes 10 teams paying their entry fee. They want their volunteer to get their choice of assignments. Last in, no, sorry, no choice there. You're going to get the ugliest, coldest, darkest, crappiest assignment. And that's just how that works. Any questions there?
How long are the rest of the shifts?
The rest of the shifts vary between 6 hours and 8 hours, but if you said 8 hours, you're close. We have a tail end Charlie, we have a truck that picks up all the equipment. I've been to all those sites when that's done, and here comes that last runner, hands off the baton. Everybody there says, what do we need to do to get out of here? Pick up all the trash, bring all the equipment, put it right here, put it on the truck. Within 10 minutes, they're in the wind and gone. So it's between a 6 and 8 hour assignment. 6 hours because the race is a 9-hour start. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 9 hours. As we get further into the race begins to get an accordion effect. It starts to shrink. The smallest window we're in is about 6.5 hours, 6.25 hours. That's the smallest window we're in. So it's an engineering thing to squeeze it into that. So we're squeezing 280 teams plus into a 6-hour period of time on a 4-lane roadway. It gets crowded. It does. Yes? Oh. In the important things to know, it's a handout I've given you here, important things to know. I'll just spot through a few of these things because they are important things. I find that, and this is a great handout, but it's 2.25 pages. It interests me, but I'm interested in this stuff. I'll sit and read it all and pick through what I think is really important. If you turn this over to and it just sends you a message. No spell check, direct message. You're missing this form, turn it in. From me to you. Well, how do you handle your people? One of the mentions in here is very important. I went to get gas the other day and I see this big sign that says, Monster drink, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, oh yes, I got to remember that. We are creatures of this habit. If 1 is good, 2 is twice as good. And 4, that's the best. That's just how we are. Those types of drinks, those types of energy drinks are absolutely the worst thing possible for runners to take before they're going to run. And over the years, many years now, I've tried my very best to take this gathering of cops that we would see in Las Vegas that go from that Friday evening with 2 beers in their fingers and 1 in their hand, walking around the hotel, to now saying, hey, that's a bottle of water or a bottle of Gatorade in your hand. You're going to run tomorrow. Don't pay that price now. Of the 2 people who were taken to the hospital last year, 2 were flown out by helicopter, flown directly from the race course to Las Vegas. Those 2 individuals were guilty of both these sins. My telling them, don't drink this stuff before you run. Laying on a gurney, being talked to by the doctor, who gets the truth out of this individual, says, what did you do? Well, you know, I was partying last night, and I thought I could be okay. Well, don't do that. Now you're going to the hospital in Las Vegas. You're going on a 90-minute flight in a helicopter. You're going to end up in a hospital dressed only in your running shorts and your shoes. No ID, no wallet, no cell phone, no money, no nothing. You're going just like you are right now. You're going to the hospital. Off they go. Next person. What did you do? Well, I thought, you know, this stuff I was drinking here was going to make me a faster runner. So I decided to take 2 and make twice as fast a runner. Taking a shortcut doesn't work. So she ends up same place in the hospital. That particular type of stuff, highly caffeinated, so it's a diuretic. You're going to pee more water out of you than you can take in. Takes your blood and thins your blood. Now when they get that IV out, and the IV needle's about that big. If you've ever seen one, when you're conscious, you would say, no thanks, I don't need that. Well, most of the time these people are unconscious when they get this, so it doesn't matter. But when they poke that person with this needle, if you've ever seen it before, blood shoots out like so. Scare the life right out of anybody else. So they know immediately when they poke that needle in you, you're on a diuretic, you're on Coumadin. How many know what Coumadin is? Blood thinner. So they go, okay, there's a bleeder. Now you watch them get into action and they're handling what they call a bleeder. So you got to pass along to your runners. Don't do this. Don't drink Friday night and run Saturday morning. Wait till the race is over. Then go enjoy yourself. This is Las Vegas. Go enjoy yourself. Hey, don't drink these types of drinks and then go run. How many know people that drink these things all the time? They take a little 5-hour blast and want to go, why are you doing that? Why is that necessary? You're killing yourself and you don't realize it. We have instituted rules in this race for the protection of people as much as we humanly can. These are part of those protections. We talk about flashing vests. How many of you here have your team all prepared? You have the number of flashing vests that you need. If you don't have the number of flashing vests that you need, a part of the equation is what time of day are you going to start? Well, clearly back here, a team that's trying to shoot under 15 hours knows they're going to start at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You got 3 hours of daylight before the rules say you must now wear a flashing vest. Calculate how many you're going to need and get those flashing vests. Part of your budget is how much you're going to have to charge for these flashing vests. I like this part. They also say 18 to 20, no music. The next handout here is the CHP Central Valley and their run plan. And there's several run plans in here, but this one caught my eye because I thought it was a good idea and something for you to take a look at. Because your runners are going to ask you, hey, if I'm going to run stage 6, what time am I going to run? And you go, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. We're starting at 1 o'clock. You're stage 6. Let's see. The first runner has this ability and they're going to run this fast. And you're trying to figure it out. Running, coordinating running, racing, relay racing, I've done my whole life. 50 years of running. I enjoy it. I take it on. I go through all of this minutia until I figure everything out to a T. I'm going to ask you to calculate your overall run time. Turn that into me so that I can calculate. Tony and I sit down and we go through all of this, trying to figure out what time do we start this team. Are they going to run 15 hours? Teams that run that kind of speed, that are brand new to the race, then I'm going to quiz you and say, how'd you calculate this? 15 hours is a pretty fast team. How'd you calculate it? You just reach in the sky and pull it out? Is this what you wish you could run? Or is this what you think you can run? And if you think you can run that, it's because you have tested your runners to determine this. But this particular run plan, very important because it tells people what time they're going to start their particular stage, what time you think they're going to run it in, and it goes through the entire race. calculate this for yourself. Place your runners in the stages you think you want them to run. Do all of this, and then give it to them. And then they'll be able to say, oh my God, I'm going to be running at 1:25 in the morning. Isn't it cold? Yes. Well, do I wear a sweatshirt? Do I wear a hat? Do I wear gloves? Do I wear tights? Well, it's all up to you what you wear if it's going to be cold at night. But I've seen people running cold at night. All of a sudden they're going, it's too hot now. Let me take the sweatshirt off. Let me take this jacket off. It's too hot. Here are the gloves back. Because all of a sudden they've warmed up and they've gotten too hot. This is what you need to calculate. That central team put a runner's information sheet out. The runner's information sheet is what the follow car looks at. Because every one of these runners is an odd, peculiar individual. What do you want? I ran with a good friend for many, many years, George Davis. And he would always tell the follow vehicle, don't talk to me. I don't want to hear any chatter. I don't want to hear how fast I ran the mile. I don't want to know whether I'm halfway, or I don't want to hear anything from you. Don't talk to me. That was how George was. Now, a certain part of that, amount of that, the follow car will respect and do. Other things, maybe they need to do things and they're going to talk to you. But put on a sheet of paper here, what does the runner want? Does the observer in that follow vehicle know you? No. Particularly when you come from an agency spread all over the place. And it's an introduction. Hi, my name is Chuck. I'm going to run stage 1. This is what I like to know. Other people, they look at. Now, what does an observer looking at when they're watching the runner? They're watching a person run down the roadway and they're watching their rear end. That's all they can see. The other day I was, who was I riding with? A friend of mine coming up to the academy, and off the distance I see a runner running. I said, oh, that's Tim Colomay. He says, how do you know that's Tim Colomay? I said, I recognize how he runs. Because he has a pattern to how he runs. I said, the only thing I was interested about Tim Colomay at the moment is he wearing shoes? He's a fanatic for wanting to run with no shoes on. Fortunately for him, he had his shoes on when I saw him. So, does the observer know the runner? Chances are pretty good they don't. So if the runner says, I want to know every mile I'm running, I want to know the exact time of every mile that I'm running. Now the observer says, oh, Lord, how do you do that? How do I know how to give this guy every individual mile exactly of what they're running? Now you're giving that observer some homework. Now you got to go buy a stopwatch. Now you got to have the follow car driver punch the odometer in that car so it zeroes out when they're starting, and when it clicks to a mile, you can say, your first mile is 9:25. Stop walking. Your next mile is 9:05. You really improved. Now, if all of a sudden they hit a hill and they go 11:25, well, they suffered. So what does the runner want? Put this on a sheet of paper. Get it to your observer, put it in the follow car, and then when the observer wants to hand the runner their favorite bottle of a mixture of Gatorade and honey and all blah, 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 all the stuff that they want, they don't just hand him a bottle of water. He goes, hey, I gave you my bottle, my special bottle. Where is it? Oh, we threw that away. We didn't know what that was. Now you make your runner mad at you. So people have odd peculiarities about what they want to know. List it on a sheet of paper, give it to the observer, just like this team has done, and you'll do just fine. We're going to talk about race communications in a minute. Why don't we take a short break here, have a cup of coffee. Let's take about 5 minutes and come on back. What I want to talk about now is Race category selection. What you choose to run in. And it's a question I don't need the answer today because some of you automatically know what you're going to do. Others, it's going to take some time to kind of go back and figure out what's best for you. Again, those that have looked at the choices and say, to get a mug, we're going to run here. Well, then you've chosen what you want to do. Send it to me. Send it to me, and in the process of between me and Tony, the form status list. And the first thing you want to look at when you look at the form status list that's on the website is, what's the date? Because if it's more than a few days old, it's no good. Because I had a team send me an email. You don't have us chalked off the list. We sent our communications form in, but you don't have an X. And I look at the date of the form on the website, it's a week old. Yeah, no good, throw it away. So look at the latest date. It will have on there what people have chosen to run in. Send me yours, I'll put yours in there. So choosing the category is important because if you're trying to mug, then certainly that matters. If you're a combination sworn, non-sworn, then you're an invitational team. Choose what category within invitational best suits your situation. Women runners, female runners count as non-sworn. If they're non-sworn, they will count both as non-sworn and as a female. It takes 5 women on a team to complete 5 stages of the race in order to qualify for a mixed category. So be sure, if you're going to choose mixed, you have 5 women. 5 women finish a leg. So if you're going to put a woman on a leg, you better have a woman in the follow vehicle or a damn trustworthy runner who isn't going to have a problem, because if they go down, you've got to replace them with a woman. A woman must finish the stage to be in that mixed category. So category selection, important for you. Look at it. Choose what you want to do. Communications. I told you, cell phones will work along the 15 freeway until you get to Baker. They'll work in the city of Baker, and then you start going north on Highway 127. You reach about 5, 6, 7 miles. That's it. Shuts off. All things go to plan, and believe you me, I rarely say that's going to happen, but we are going to try to establish, for the purposes of our timing company, the ability to get on the internet at stage 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 9. We're going to attempt to do this. Now, I don't profess to know radios or frequencies or UHF from VHF, none of that stuff. So when the person who's doing this talks to me and says, we're going to do such and such, and I said, well, that sounds interesting. You can do that? Yes, we can. You can establish a hotspot at stage 2? Yes, we can. I said, what happens when one of these teams drives up and all of a sudden their telephone goes, hey, Fred, there's a hotspot here. We can go on the internet. And you start looking and it says, password protected. You can't get in. Then you stop and talk to the officials. Hey, I need to get on the internet. What's the password? They're going to say, can't give it to you, sorry. Can't get in there. We're using this for data transmission. I said, well, it's an interesting problem to solve a problem, but you create a problem at the same time, because you create the thought that people can get on the internet because they see that hotspot. Now, I have to tell you, if you tried to quiz me about what is a hotspot, I'd tell you I don't know. I just know it's a term they use. It means that the internet's available. So we're trying to do something on our part to handle a problem, at the same time not create a bigger one. If it creates too big a one, I just take a meat axe and go, we're not going to do that. Next. How are you going to communicate? You, the team captain, to your entire team, how are you going to communicate? Let's take the first problem, number 1. Follow vehicle. The FRS radio, that mandatory, everybody has to have one, is communications, follow vehicle to follow vehicle. Tony points out the exact scenario. Here comes a runner, going to pass that 9-minute miler. They're on Highway 127, which means the runner is running at the extreme right-hand side of the road. No paved shoulder here, guys, no sidewalks. This is a wilderness. There's just dirt shoulder. Their follow car is doing things absolutely right, splitting the road with a dirt road right behind their runner. The faster runner is about to catch him. Follow car to follow car. We're going to catch you. Move to your left. Allow our runner to come by you along the fog line on the asphalt, pass your runner, and move on. Then move back. Now it's safe for you to pass. Faster follow vehicle passes a slower one, gets behind their runner, off they go. Works like a charm. I listen to that chatter all day, all night long, and it works just fine. Now we come on to Highway 160, Pahrump to Fort Apache, 46 miles. A paved shoulder lane, 95% of the time. A few spots where there isn't, but 95% of the time, a paved shoulder lane. That's where we expect your follow car to be. Same scenario, follow car behind a slow runner. Here comes a faster runner in the shoulder lane. All of you know what a rumble strip is? Well, there's a rumble strip on Highway 160 that's vicious, about a foot wide, 10 feet deep. When your car hits that rumble strip, you will recognize it because it'll shake the fillings right out of your head. So the car is trying to avoid this. They're to the extreme right, following their slow runner. Here comes a faster runner. Hey, slow car, we're going to pass you. Stop. Don't try to move left or right, just stop. Our faster runner will go right around you. When it's safe, we'll pass you and we'll go on. Here's what we're trying to avoid. Along Highway 160, which is a 4-lane divided highway, we're in the extreme right shoulder lane, lane 2, lane 1. What happens is the follow car moves into lane 2 and pokes along at 1 mile an hour, following their 9-minute miler. Off the rumble strip in the traffic lane. Here comes fast cars. Yes, everybody in that town, everybody in that community knows we're coming. No surprise there. But nonetheless, that's not a safe thing to do. So we're trying to avoid that. So this conversation becomes very critical along that patch of road because there's a great deal of passing that goes on there. So we want to make sure that that works. That's one mandatory means of communication. A good friend of mine from the CHP will be in the meeting today and wears with a badge of honor. No other means of communication. That's it. Just that FRS radio, a plan that says, here's my runners, here's where they need to be, when they need to be there, period. And it works for them. But if you don't like that particular plan, then be prepared to pay some money, because it isn't free, and rent some handheld radios. Now, it depends on the level of sophistication you want to go. If you're an agency that has a civilian attachment to it that are amateur radio operators, who has that? Then you're a lucky agency. And if you go to your amateur radio operators and say, hey, we're going to do this, we need to set up a communication so I can talk to everybody. Right up their alley. This is what they do. This is what they love to do. And they help you. And I've seen follow vehicles that take a ham and put them in the back of their vehicle, crunched in this little small spot, next to the stack of water, and their ham radio's right there, big 20-foot antenna on the car, and down they go the roadway. And they can talk to everybody. With their amateur radio operation, they can talk to everyone. They set up their own frequency, they use their repeaters. Marvelous. Okay, you're a lucky person. To you, it isn't so lucky. Now you're faced with, what do you do about it? How do you solve the problem of follow car to team catcher, the next most critical piece of communication that has to occur. For the follow car to be assured that as they're running stage 4, that stage 5 runner is there, on time, ready to run, shoes are tied, bib numbers on, they're all outfitted in their color coordinated running suit that they're going to wear. Everything's ready to go. The team catcher tells the follow car, we're here, we're ready to go. Are you on time? Yes, we are. We're within 2 minutes of being right on schedule. Okay, the runner's ready to go. They know if they're going to run at 11:30 and it's 11 o'clock now and the runner is 3 miles away, they feel like everything is going to work for them because you've had that conversation, follow car to team catcher, who's working that next stage. They also are the catcher. They're the shuttle driver and the catcher, which means they've got a reflective vest and your bib number on. The personnel that work the exchange point are going to say, okay, team 29, get in the chute, be ready. Where's the catcher for 29? And they're going to look for that number. Matches the runner. Runner coming in is 29. Runner going out is 29. Catcher's 29. Perfect. No catcher? Notes it on the information. No catcher. Stage 3, 29. Here comes a 5-minute penalty. And again, if it doesn't impact you much, well, then you take your lumps. If it hurts you, you're going to be very mad. Take that scenario, twist it a little bit. Follow car radios to the catcher, says, we're coming in. Where's the runner? We don't know. We can't find him. There's a mass of people here. There's 250 people roaming around. We haven't seen them. Did they check in? Yes, they checked in, but we don't know where they are. Now the PA system that we have at almost all of these exchange points says, runner 29, 1 mile out. You now have 7 minutes if they're good, 6 minutes if they're excellent. There are no 5-minute milers. Sorry, that doesn't happen. 9 minutes, pokey. 11 minutes, super pokey. But they're coming in. They're a mile out. You've got that much time to find them. And here they come, out of the porta potty, because they've heard that number. And they say, oh, that's me. I'm 29. Out they come to the porta potty. Oh, well, where have you been? We've been looking for you. Well, I was taking my shoes, and I was doing this, and getting myself ready. Now, catcher radios back to the follow car. Found the runner. We're okay. Because the alternate that was sitting in the follow car, who's been eating Cheetos for the last 3 hours, now has gone from, oh my God, I'm going to have to run. I am not ready for this. And I'm sure not ready to run stage 7. I'm not ready to run 14. I don't want to run that stage. I'm glad they found you. Okay. So, follow vehicle to catcher, you need to have a radio. Do not, absolutely do not take your police radios to the race course. Don't do that. You'll lose it, you break it, and it doesn't function. Worst of all things, it doesn't function. Works here, but doesn't work out there. Don't do that. Rented radios go from a minimum of $15 a radio. Inexpensive. Line of sight, true. They'll go maybe 3 miles. But that's that assurance between the follow vehicle and the catcher. So how do you organize your team? How many shuttle vehicles do you have? How many team catchers do you have? Can you get the radio from this person to that person? Can you do that? Figure that out. Go a step further. Where are you on the race course? You as team captains, how many of you are going to run in the race itself? Most all of you. Okay. My advice to you, run early. Depends on your ability and what you want to do, but run inside of the first 5 stages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Run one of those. Don't go further than that. Because the the emotional drag on you to worry about your team all night long and then try to run 17 or 19 or any of those, you will be so exhausted you won't do yourself any favors. Don't do that. Run early, get back to worrying about your team.
Thank you for being so motivating.
Oh, well,
Late 20.
it's tough. If you're going to be a team captain and run late 20, by the time you come to 20, you will be so emotionally drained, you'll think, I can get out there and run 8-minute miles. And all of a sudden you run the first one in 8 minutes and the next one in 12 minutes. And the next one in 15 minutes because you're walking. And you wonder, what happened? I'm better than this. Well, you're so pooped out from worrying about the team for all of those hours in advance. It's tough. I tried it once. It wasn't fun. So I don't do that anymore. So how do you communicate? Now, if you want to take it that step further and you're on the race course, then you've got a radio. And you'll listen to that chatter between your follow vehicle and the catcher. If you're close by, you can hear it. And all of a sudden they say, the catcher says, we don't know where the runner is. We can't find him. They did not check in. They went over to the RV support trailer and your runner didn't check in. It's now 30 minutes before that runner is going to have to run. What are you going to do about this? You've now been notified by the follow vehicle and the catcher that there's no runner at stage 4 to run your stage. And you don't know where the hell they are. But they're not there because they didn't check in. You drive over to stage 4 and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. You radio to the follow vehicle and you tell the follow vehicle, hey, when it's 1 mile out, leave the runner there, drive up to stage 4, kick the runner out, the alternate, the runner that's in our car, boot him out of the car, tell him to run over to the exchange point, register to run. He goes from a yellow bib number to a white bib number, gets over in the chute. Before the runner gets there, no warm-up, no potty break, still spitting out the Cheetos, and now they run. And here comes your leg 4 runner, 30 minutes late, shows up and says, well, here I am. Hey man, the runner's been gone for 30 minutes. Where you been? I was stuck in all that traffic. I didn't know there was so much traffic. I thought we were the only people running out here today. They were trying to drive from Baker to stage 4 and didn't realize that at 12 o'clock noon, we're going to stop you at the starting line. Because at 12 o'clock noon, we start a team, a flight of teams. So 5 minutes before 12 to 5 minutes after 12, we stop the roadway. Okay, that means no cars go by, and you're stuck in that traffic. Now you as a team captain say, okay, I'm mad at my runner 4, but I'm not so mad that I need him. They were a pretty good runner. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You leg 4, you go up to leg 14, and you tell 14 they don't have to run. You're going to run that stage. Whoa, wait a second. That's 10.7 miles. Yeah, we need you. You're a good runner. We need you. 14 would go, hallelujah, I don't have to do that. I'm going to be now an alternate. I'll go run something else. So you can move people around if you need to. But you need to be out there to handle that problem personally. You can't foist it on somebody else. You're going to have to do this yourself, which means you now have to be aware of it. Cell phones aren't going to make you aware of it. You're left with some kind of radio ability. So again, these are the different layers of radios. The communications form is due on the 26th of January. That is exactly tomorrow. I asked Tony this morning, how many teams are still left that have not turned in that comm form? He said, 53. Okay. Today you'll hear me, and I'll bark mean and nasty to everybody. If you're one of those 53, you get off your butt and you get that in right now. And it's going to ask you, what type of communications are you going to use? None. Okay. But everybody turns one in. Or we're going to use rented radios from Bearcom. We're going to use rented radios from MRA. You're going to use some kind of radios. You're going to depend on amateur radio operators. Whatever you're going to do must be turned in by tomorrow. Because on Saturday morning, When I get that same list that'll shrink from 53 down to 5 or 6, then I'm going to call you. Tony's going to call you Friday if I don't call you. And I'm going to call you personally and say, where's this? And as I tell the folks who work in my office, if I cannot reach you on your cell phone number you've given me, then I'm going to go to your work. And I'm going to say, I'm looking for Motor Officer Emmerd. Oh, he's working nights. Well, get a hold of him. I tried him. I couldn't reach him. You get a hold of him. Oh, I don't want to do that. Well, give me the captain. Now I'm going to talk to your captain. Or I'm going to talk to your chief. Or I'm going to talk to your chief's adjutant. I called my police department. I live in West Covina. To talk about something. And it was a Friday. And so the PSR says, okay. I said, let me have the watch commander, which is me over. I'm talking to I thought a desk officer. And I said, well, listen, I want to talk to watch commander. He's not here. Well, okay, let me talk to the captain's adjutant. What's the adjutant? Well, who are you? There's a cadet. Okay, I'm talking to a cadet. And I said, well, is there an officer there? No, I'm it. You're the only person in the station? Yes. On a Friday, nobody there. No captain, secretary, no chief, no adjutant, no watch commander, nobody. I said, oh my God, I live in this town. I said, you should have put a sign on the door that says, gone fishing, not here today. Closed. That poor kid, I just felt sorry for him. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find your co-captain. If it's that important to me, I will not get deterred by the fact that your cell phone just rings or that you don't answer a text message. I'm going to find the answer, one way or another, to put the pressure on you to say, this form is due right now. On Saturday morning, if I don't get those in, then a 10-minute penalty gets attached to your team, and we haven't even started the race. Plus me getting mad at you. So let's not have that. Yeah? Yeah, same thing. That forms list that's on the, if you went on the website right now and looked at the date of the forms list, you'd see it 7 days ago. It's no good. I will update all the information today, and before I leave here today, send that to the website to say, post this. This is today's date. Always look at that form status list to say, what's the date? The day before today's date, you're probably good with the information. 2 days old, no good. 3 days old, for sure, no good. I wish it were faster. I can't make it any faster than that. So real important due dates, times, that sort of thing. So communications, vitally important to you because it's what makes your team run smoothly, keeps all the aggravation level down. And that's what you want. Yeah?
Now, if we've already filled out the form and saying no communications, if later today that would change our mind, is there any grace period where we can go like a couple of days?
Here's what's going to happen. The race frequency coordinator, a fellow named Jeff Lee, great guy, works his tail off for me. He controls and coordinates 600 frequencies. It's a massive amount of radio traffic out there. The desert is dirt quiet. If you went out there right now, you'd be the only person out there. We haul out all of this equipment and all of this radio. If you change your mind, you've said none, I want no radios of any sort. Now all of a sudden somebody says, well, here's an extra couple $100. Why don't you go rent yourself some radios? Now, you say, okay, what do I do now? You email to me, I will send your information to Jeff Lee and say, this team wants to now add a frequency, is it possible? He's going to tell me yes or no. And we'll be guided by that. Now, can he take 200 requests in the last week before the race? No. A few that happen, okay. So the big thing is, right now, while you got the opportunity, how much money is it out of your pocket? 3 radios, $45. 4 radios, whatever, $90. So let's try to make sure that you're on the ball here and that you get this level of communication so vital to making your team run smoothly. Unless you're a team that just says, everybody is rock solid, they're going to be there when I tell them to be there, I don't need any communications. You'll be at an exchange point, you'll see it for yourself. Well-organized teams, radio in hand, catcher has the radio, talking to the follow vehicle, runners in the chute, just that easy. To the other extreme, running around like crazy. Runner not there. Runner runs out of the bathroom at the very last second. The runner has come in who has just run his tail off because you're trying to win a mug. They're doing their job. They come in with a baton and nobody to hand it to. Now he's mad, which happened to me at least once anyway. And here comes a runner. So the very first thing I do when I have the baton in my hand is I hit him with it in the head. Boink. I say, man, I just run my tail off. Where the hell were you? He didn't finish his answer before he runs off down the road. You're going to see this. And it's one thing to have that short little 10-second delay. It's another thing for them to stand there for 10 minutes while they look for this person who's been registering, who now runs over there with their shoes untied, grabs the baton, starts running. Everything in between, folks, is what you're going to see. And it's one thing to do this in daylight when you can see. Get to stage 10 in a kind of a low spot in the desert out there, and you're going to see hundreds of runners. And you can see about this far. That's it. You know, I have 2 light towers out there, and you still can't see very well. So all of a sudden it becomes really a drill trying to get it all organized. So communication's vitally important in how you keep that level of anxiety. That if you're the team captain and you went through this for 16, 17 hours, 18 hours, before you run, you'll be a wet noodle before you try. You'll just be so exhausted from the highs and lows of what goes on out there. Are we clear on communications and how important it really is? Has everybody got a communications plan ready to go? If you don't have one, boy, you got yourself about 24 hours to do some fast hustling. I've sent you the 3 recommended radio people that can help you. You got to open up your checkbook. You got to get out your credit card. You got to pay for this. They'll help you, but they're not going to do it for free. And it does work.
Excuse me, Chuck.
Yeah.
On the team form status,
Mm-hmm.
can you kind of explain what the first one's category, obviously, estimated time,
Mm-hmm.
and what's the next one? It's kind of mixed up there.
Okay, I can't see it myself here. Okay, the abbreviations on the form status list. TS, team shirts. TV, team volunteer. Have you turned in your volunteer? CO, which is the very next due date, that's tomorrow, communications. You remember him so well, Charlie Folks. Chuck Folks. I worked with him for, 27 years, 28 years. He was a specialist on LAPD, which meant they gave him a badge, they paid him nothing, they worked him like a dog. That's LAPD, that's a specialist. He loved it. He was a grand individual. He was an engineer. How many of you know engineers? Engineers are very peculiar folks. Sorry, Charlie, he was. He's very black and white, very anal, and very meticulous. And he was a computer person, worked for a company called Marquardt. And Chuck Folks, when I met him and we sort of met each other, he was the volunteer for Van Nuys division. And when he saw Larry Moore and I, doing all of our paperwork with a pencil and a yellow pad, he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, we're calculating such and such." He said, "Why are you doing it like that?" I said, "Well, that's the only way we know." "Oh, let me help you. I'll write a program for you." Well, I didn't know what he meant by write a program. but years and years later, the program that runs this operation, the computer program, was written by Chuck Folks. And he took us under his wing like you would if a mongrel dog showed up at your doorstep. Oh, I can't throw this dog out. Maybe we'll just give him a little food. Well, that was him to us. He rescued Larry and I and developed a program that we use to this day. And when I tell people if they know anything about computer programs and database operations, and I say this program is written in Paradox, does anybody here know what that means? Anybody ever heard of Paradox? You heard of Access. Well, Access to Paradox is like kindergarten to Albert Einstein. Huge difference in between. The Paradox program that he wrote runs the entire operation of this race. And it took me some time, when Chuck died, to find another individual who could read it, write it, understand it, and change it when it was necessary. Been fortunate, we found that person. I hope that Tony is as fortunate as I've been over these 34 years, because I've always found somebody to help in this race when there was a need to help. Chuck came along. A guy named Sam is now taking his place to do this. And over all these years, I've always been lucky that when a person left the operation, I could find somebody, or if there was a need. There is no way in this world that I could do this race by myself. Tony could not do this race by himself. Impossible. There are 800 volunteers that work in this race besides the 250 you give me, or 280. There's 800 of them out there. And you know what I give them? A t-shirt, a shake of the hands, and a thanks. That's it. Now, the race costs a lot of money, for sure. But these folks knock themselves out for all of this for virtually nothing. They're wonderful people. So communication's very vital to you. Be sure that you tackle it, you get it underway. That's what those abbreviations mean on that form status list.
What is the RR for?
RR, okay, let's get to that one. Runner registration. I will talk a little bit about runner registration in the big meeting today, but let me get a little more specific to you. I have given you a password. On the website for BakerVegas.com, and you see runner registration and you click on that, you get a picture. What you're getting is a link. And that link is going to a good friend of mine that I've used for many years to this day. I've never met him. I know of him. I know who he was before I started to use him, but I've never met him. But another guy who goes a long ways out of his way to develop what we need to use. In years past, I took 5,000, 6,000 runners, took 2 people who were volunteers and said, sit in front of my computer and type every single name into this file, one at a time. Oh, it drove them crazy. Took them 2 days to do it. Along comes this program. In a flash, you put your runners in and you handle it for me. So if there's a misspelled name in there and the runner writes me and says, hey, you misspelled my name. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't do that. Or they click female and you're not a female. I'm sorry. I'll fix that because that's important. Your misspelled name, I'm sorry about that. You're going to go forever spelled that way. Runner registration, you're going to use your team number, the password I gave you, click on that, opens up a page, and it says follow these instructions. Start writing in your team runners in the order in which they're going to run. If they're non-sworn, put a check here. If they're female, put a check here. Put all 20 runners in. How many alternates you put in is totally up to you. How many do you have? I gave you space for 10. If you have 20, you're extraordinary. Sorry about the other 10. They don't fit. If you have a name that's this long, it won't fit in the computer. You know that by now. Which case, we just go chop, and cut your name off. That'll happen. So runner registration, you're going to go on there, you're going to do that, and you see a little box that says send entries. You click that button. You have now sent your entries. All this work that you did, you sent it to a separate computer program, a separate website. It holds on to that information. Tony goes into the office, goes through some steps, and sends it from that system to ours. Again, an invention of Chuck's a long time ago. Just that fast. And it populates all that information. So you have between now and Monday morning of the race, the 6th, what would that be? 12th? I believe it's the 12th of March is the Monday before the race. At 10 o'clock on the 12th, I will turn the system off and you won't be able to change anything. So you have between now and then to make these changes. What Tony and I look at as we begin to update the form status list is a small r in that box for RR. The lowercase r means you've gone in and at least put your name in there. Maybe 2 or 3 runners. You've done something. I know you know what you're doing. So I pass you. I look for a line that has nothing. And I'll wait a few weeks and I see no activity. Then I call you and say, hey, I gave you a password. Why haven't you done anything? Oh, was I supposed to do that? Yes. Go on there. Show me you know what you're doing. You look on that RR list and you see a big X. That big X means they've completed everything. All 20 runners are in there. Tony and I have done this a couple of times now. I'll get to Monday morning at 10 o'clock, start to run the data, and it all of a sudden says, Team 137 only has 19 runners. Now, sure enough, I look at the list and they're missing somebody. No alternates and they're missing a runner. Because if there were alternates, I'd just move an alternate runner there without calling you. Be anybody. Now I call you and say, hey, you only got 19 runners. This will not work until you put your 20th runner in there. Who is it? We're working on it right now. We don't know. We're going to go to everybody. I said, well, you come up with a Joe Jones, a John Doe 1, because you come up with an answer, I'll hum Jeopardy, I'll give you 5 minutes. You don't come back, I'm putting John Doe in here. You figure it out later. So everybody has to go in there. When the X's are all there, the program's ready to go. Then I start printing the run logs. The log that you're going to get when you come in on Friday to Las Vegas, to the Westgate Hotel at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're standing first in line. You walk up, hand in your waivers. I give you back your run log. Your 10 o'clock on Monday morning run log. And then you tell the person that there's, well, we had a change. Joe Jones is not going to run. Fred Smith is going to run in his place. And they say, that's okay. You take a pencil, scratch out the name that was there, put the name that's going to run there, and give it to your follow vehicle. When your follow vehicle crew takes a look at the run log, do they know every one of those runners? Doubtful. They're going to look and say, we didn't know who Fred Jones was, and we sure don't know Mike Smith. We don't know who either one of these guys are. We're just volunteers driving the car, observing in the car. We don't know any of these runners. Okay, well, don't have to. Follow the instructions and you'll be okay. That's how that function works. So that's what that RR means. All right? A bit out of order, but let's take it here. Does anything else about communications? On the race course, let me stop a second. At the Westgate Hotel, up on the 29th floor, is our command post. Should it happen, and it happens every year, I will give you the phone number to the hotel itself. You give that to your watch commander back at your station. And you tell your watch commander, if there is a significant problem and you must reach me or this runner or that support person, Here's what you do. You call this phone number, you ask for the Baker to Vegas command post on the 29th floor, and you'll get switched up to a group of amateur ham radio operators. They operate our command post. And they're going to say, what's the problem? We have to reach this officer. There's been an accident in their family. They must come home right now. We need to find them. What team are they with? They're with the Nevada Highway Patrol. What's their team number? Oh, we don't know. I give everybody the same list that you can look at, the cross-reference list. Because on the right-hand side of the cross-reference list, it says, here are the teams in alphabetical order. That's their team number. So they look it up, they find the team number, and they say, okay, where's this person? Well, we think they were going to run somewhere around Baker. We're not sure. Okay. The amateur ham radio operator there puts out a broadcast. It reaches every single stage because every stage has a group of amateur radio operators working the stage whose sole purpose is emergency communication. This is an emergency communication. What's the message? Looking for Fred Jones, Team 137. They must call the station immediately. Now they put out a broadcast, and they try to find 137, and they try to find Fred Jones, wherever they are. And we've been very successful. It's a great means of communication and very successful. So you need to give this information to the important people left back at the station who would need to make that kind of a communications request. Here's the phone number, here's the command post, here's how this works. If you're trying to find me, same thing. The command post, amateur radio operators, I'll be on the air. I have an amateur radio operator right there with me. Tony has one with him. All of the key people in the race have an amateur radio operator with us so that we can make this kind of emergency chatter if we needed to. It works great. They're a great group of people, and their communications is flawless. Flawless. Anything else out there is iffy, but theirs is very good. There's a next sheet in there titled Shuttles. It's a shuttle plan and the guide to go by with how you handle shuttles. I've mentioned this many times in the team captains meeting about using rented cars as opposed to your personal car. And the great difference between the two is the abuse the car is going to take. And that's just the way it is. People will get into your personal car and they'll eat bananas, eat Cheetos, and throw them on the floor. And then stomp on them until you'll never get them out of the rug and the floor. And they'll spill coffee on your seat and say sorry about that. Personal cars take some real whipping out there. You want to use rented vehicles. You won't feel so bad when you take it back. With rocks in it, dirt in it, banana peelings, all of this sort of thing. What is your shuttle plan? How are you going to move people? Runners are peculiar folks, no question. Some will say, I want to be picked up at this hour to run that stage. How long does it take to get there? How many are absolutely unfamiliar with this race course? Never been there. There is a road between Highway 160 and Highway 127. Pahrump Valley to the Ibex Pass to Tacoma Hot Springs area. You would never know there was a road there till you really look hard. 2-lane road, no lights, no nothing, no street lights, zero. Travel at nighttime, and you better have your eyes really glued. Because at the very, very end of it, the very west end, is a set of switchbacks that leads up to Tacoma Hot Springs, and it is extremely dangerous. But it's a roadway that cuts across there. So you need to know, where are these places? How do you get from Las Vegas to Stage 6 the fastest way possible? Is it to drive the race course? Not at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it isn't. Yeah, sure. From Las Vegas to Baker, 90 miles. Highway 15, as long as there's no accidents, you can probably zip there in 90 minutes. From Baker to the start line, 25 miles. Now you get in line with the rest of the circus, and it isn't fast. Once you get past the start line, it really pokes along. 2-lane road, lots of cars going both ways. Tony's right, truck traffic, bus traffic. Coming out of Death Valley, and I get messages quite often from people who say, we want to go to Death Valley that weekend. Are we going to be interrupted by your parade? Yes, I'm sorry, you will be. You can get there, we're not closing the road, but it is slow. So how you plan this shuttles is an important factor in your race. Again, trying to lower your anxiety, how you plan this. They've written a step-by-step set of procedures. Seems pretty reasonable. You want to be at your leg as a runner in enough time to get out of the vehicle. Are you going to park 100 feet from the exchange point? Not a chance. You're going to park quarter mile? More than likely. A mile at stage 9, a mile might be something you'll have to park, depending when you get there. You could walk a mile back to the exchange point to do the registration as a runner. So planning on all of this, how much time does it take? I always tell people it's good to warm up. Do you know what warming up means when you're trying to run? Some runners know exactly what that means. Most people say, well, I'm not going to get tired. Why would I do that? Why would I jog first before I'm going to go run 6 miles? And so they don't do that. Okay. If you're running 9 minutes a mile, it does not matter. No, you don't need a warm-up. Not at 9 minutes a mile. You're going to try to run 7 minutes a mile? By now you already realize, yeah, you do have to warm up. So how do you do that? How do you warm up when there's no road to do it on, or no lights to see? Lots of planning involved there. Again, the flashing vest, a very necessary thing. Yeah?
Real quick, just listening to this, going over is there any other, I think you mentioned 16 was the only one, but is there any other stages where if you are going out in groups and you drop a runner off at one leg, you shuttle and you have the runner for the coming leg, is there anywhere you're not going to make it other than 16?
Here's what you have to plan for. It's tough. I tell new teams, brand new teams, never been there before, this will sound ugly. Take 2 15-passenger vans, put all of the odd runners in one. I'm talking odd, like me, 1, 3, 5, that type of thing. Not odd. Take all of those runners in one 15-passenger van, all the evens in the other. 2 shuttle drivers, 2 vans. Put them all that way. And run all night long, all day long, just like that. Taking one to the start line, take that shuttle vehicle, drive it up to stage 3. You now have 2 stages to wait before you have to run. How much time is that? Well, stage 1 is a little over 5 miles. That could take you 40 minutes. Stage 2 is short, 4 miles. That might only take you 30 minutes. Now you've got 70 minutes to get there. Park, get the guy out, get him to his registration. Do all of that razzmatazz in 70 minutes. If you try to do it back to back, now you're putting some pressure on. To get from 1 to 2, pretty easy. To get from some of these stages, it's not so easy to get there, even though the road's the same. It's narrower, can't find a place to park. You're looking at your watch saying, oh my gosh, that runner's only 15 minutes away. I got to get hustling here. I haven't let the runner out yet. Hey, Fred, jump out right here. Go register. We'll find a place to park. We'll bring your stuff up, blah, 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 blah. So you put some pressure on yourself. There's no restrictions to it except your own timing. When you engineer what you're going to do, you'll see the time between stages. And you'll say, oh, wow, this guy's going to run this stage in 32 minutes. I can't get from here to there in 32 minutes. Now you start saying, okay, we're going to need 2 shuttles out here at the start of the race and throughout the race. dropping off, evens and odds, all the way through. Now the guy gets done with his stage, and he gets picked up. And he says, where's my sweats? Where's my favorite bottle of water? Where's my ice chest? It's in the other vehicle. Well, how do I get that? Well, wait till we stop. We'll figure out how to get it. So parts of the problem of having them in two different vehicles and being picked up by a separate vehicle is that problem. So there's much to engineer here in how you do your shuttles. If you're a fun team and you just want to get through this, well, then that doesn't matter too much, because you're not putting pressure on your runners to say, hey, run faster. You said you could run 7 minutes a mile. Show us you can run 7 minutes a mile. You're trying to run 15 hours. Now you're trying to run fast. And if you're trying to run fast, everything has to be right on the money right. And you can't have that 10-second wait, 15-second wait. As I try to show people, I said, look at the results. How often do you see in the results that between first place and second place was a separation of 90 seconds? You won or you lost by 90 seconds. 90 seconds divided by 20 runners. What is that? 3 seconds a run? 4 seconds a run? If you ran 10 seconds a mile faster over 120 miles, how much time is that? Overall, it's huge. So all of this has to say, what are you going to do? And how are you going to do this? So again, I just go to the simplest plan and say, put 15 here, or put 10 here, put 10 there, odds there, evens here. Take the pressure off your follow vehicle or your shuttle drivers. We as a retired team, we go out 20 cars, 20 guys. That's how we go. But we're kind of a fun team, and we don't really have that same kind of pressure that you might have on yourselves. So shuttle drivers and the plan take some real sitting down with pencil and paper to say, how are you going to do this? Because the how you're going to do this determines how many shuttle drivers do you need, how many vehicles do you need, how much gas are those vehicles going to consume, who's going to pay for all that fuel. All laid at your hands, at your job to take care of. I'm going to pause here and give you guys a little bit of time to get out there. I'm trying to see if we have I do. I see our volunteers to do team shirts. So I'll give you some time. You can leave your paperwork here, whatever you like here, take it in the other room. Up on the stage, go up, get your shirts early before everybody else shows up. And we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock when that meeting ends. Coach people to be better runners. And as I mentioned to you at the start of things, very tough. Because there's about 7,000 people in this race that are the runners of this race. I watch a lot of them out there. I watch a lot of them struggle, like the Dickens. I see some very good ones. The best person on LAPD right now as a runner is a guy named Scott Langford that made the front page of our internal magazine the other day. And I was very impressed. That's good to do that. Scott ran a 1:08 half marathon. A 1:08 half marathon is 5:12 a mile for 13 miles. That's damn good. Did he win his category? Because runs like that, the one that he went to, which was the Houston Half Marathon, they give away big money. And when they give away big money, out comes the professional people. They're not going to knock themselves out for $500, but they will for $5,000. You know, they'll knock you out and push you out of the way and eat you for lunch. So that's how serious they get when they try to do this. But Scott ran a terrific race. And when you say, when I see somebody of that caliber, then generally I want to say, okay, where'd you run before? Because you just don't accidentally do this. Where'd you run before? No place. No high school? Mm-mm. College? Mm-mm. Army? No. Oh, where? No place. Just got to LAPD, ran a little bit in the service, not much, but a little bit. Got onto LAPD, got the bug to run, and got good. His spouse, Amanda, I can't think of Amanda's maiden name, but now she's married. Amanda, who is also an excellent runner. And so when I asked Amanda, where did you run before? Cal State Northridge. What did you run? 5,000 meters, cross country. Okay, makes sense. And you run at a university like that and you're good enough to make that team, then you're going to be a pretty good runner. Now the two of them have a child, expecting a second one. If you were a horse fanatic, a horse player, you would known, okay, those two gene pools ought to produce somebody pretty good. So we'll wait and see. If I'm alive long enough, maybe I'll see. But training for those two people, not much I could say or help them with. Langford does all of his workouts on a treadmill. Now, how many of you run on a treadmill? How many of you have fallen off the treadmill because you weren't paying attention? And the treadmill knocks you right off. He does all of his workouts on a treadmill, which just astounded me that anybody would do that. Because you got to run, to run that fast, you got to run 10 miles a day, 7 days a week. 70 miles a week on a treadmill. Imagine that. Bizarre. So when you take a look at your team and say, how can you help your team get better? If every single one of your 20 runners got 1 minute faster on their stage, your overall time drops by 20 minutes. 2 minutes, 40 minutes. Got to do the math. Doesn't take much. Now, what does it take to make one runner get from 9 minutes a mile to 8 minutes a mile? Not a lot of effort, but it does take some. Takes some losing some weight, takes getting out and training, some things you have to do. Do you meet every day at 4 o'clock and get your whole group together to go for a workout? I don't think so. You're lucky if you see 2 of them at one place at one time, more or less all 20. So it is difficult, if not impossible, to do what you're trying to do. Hey, Maida, can we get some more coffee up here? I don't know about you guys, but I could use a cup of coffee. So training is a tough task. So you really kind of have to say, what can you do? What can you suggest to your people? If your group of runners, if anybody in your group of runners is age 50 and above, who has somebody that old? Several of you, okay. Then the very first thing you want to do to be assured that you're not hurting them is tell them to go get a physical. Go get a physical. It may, be foreign language to them. If your police department is anything like LAPD, this is how LAPD works. You come on to the police department, everybody takes a physical. Done with the physical, you pass, you move on to the next test. Do you ever have to take a physical again? No. Not to the day you retire or drop dead. Neither one. You don't have to. And because you do not have to, here are the consequences of never taking another physical again. All of the diseases we could list, leukemia, cancer, high blood pressure, do any of those diseases have a symptom in which you can recognize? No. No, not a one of them does. So therefore, they're all considered silent killers, and they are. So by not having a physical, what have they done? They've said, okay, it's on you. If you want to take a physical, you go see your own doctor, you take a physical. You don't want to, you don't have to. Does a cop voluntarily go take a physical? Nah. I'm talking to a friend of mine in there and he says, oh man, I've been sick since January the 1st. I said, you had the flu? Oh, I had the flu, terrible. Did you get a flu shot? No. Why not? I mean, I hate needles, but I got a flu shot. Come on, get a flu shot. Avoid that kind of problem. So I know officers aren't going to do this. They aren't going to take a physical. And for the most part, they're not going to take any caution about getting ill. But if you have somebody 50 on your team that's going to run, I highly recommend you go to them and say, get a physical. Because a doctor might just come back and tell you, hey man, you know what? You got high blood pressure. Your blood pressure is 190 over 95. What are you doing to yourself? I didn't know I had that problem. Yeah, there is no recognition to that. So blood pressure is a problem. As I explained to you way back in the beginning of all of this, the very first meeting, prostate cancer to men at age 50. Moving on from there is another silent killer. I didn't know I had it until I took a physical, and I took a physical every year. And on that physical comes a blip, a surge, and a PSA test that leads to a biopsy that leads to surgery. I didn't know that was going to happen because most people look at me and say, oh, you're fit, you're this, you're that. And I say, oh, no, don't go by looks. Looks are very deceiving. And again, so age 50, go get a physical. Take your next group of people and say, what are you doing? Are you training at all? You doing anything? You're going to get the percentage of people that say they do nothing. They're going to come out there the day of the race, slip on a pair of shoes they wear once a year, run their leg, walk their leg, get through their leg, and go back to Vegas and have their fun. All right, nothing you can do about that. To the next group that says, well, I'd like to do something, but what do I do? They're going to come to you looking for advice. What do I do? So my best answer to you, to beginners, is to tell them that 3 days a week, go run for 30 minutes a day. 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back from wherever they live or work. 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. They will make a big change in their going from 9-minute mile pace to 8:30 mile pace by that little bit of workout. A little bit more, the better value the runner. So do what you can, and you'll be surprised people will actually follow your advice. You tell people to go get a physical because they're age 51 or 2, even though they hadn't had one in 20 years, they may pay attention to you. And they may be also shocked by the doctor who says, no running for you. Your blood pressure is this, you cannot run. Matter of fact, I'm going to put you off work. You never know. So look at that, try to handle that. I've had people come in, again, back to that story about being unrealistic, and sit down with me and say, well, I heard, I want to run a 3-hour marathon. I said, well, sorry, that's not possible. You're too old, you're too slow, and you're not talented enough. God didn't give you those genes, that's the way it is, and you're never going to do that. So plan on something else. 4 hours, you might have a chance. 5 hours, you could probably do. If you want to walk and jog, you could do a 5-hour marathon. You'll hurt like the devil, but that's your choice. So be realistic, try to help them where you can, and go from there. We're going to, in about 30 minutes, go look at a follow vehicle that Glendale PD is going to bring out onto the field. Real important when you look both at the crew that you're going to assign the follow vehicle to. When was this? Oh gosh, probably 20 years ago. Either Secret Service or FBI, I can't remember which it was, had a volunteer say, I can drive the follow vehicle all 17 hours. I can do this. So of course, they're short on people and they say, okay. Gets behind that wheel, he's good for 10, good for 11, good for 14, but around 15, 16 hours, boom. Falls asleep, runs it into the shoulder of the road, and crashes. Don't do this. Look at your plan. Follow vehicle crew, observer, driver, who's the alternate. So there's 3 people in that follow vehicle. The minivan's the best to work with because you take that, slide that door open. The alternate sits in there, and when it's time to give water to the runner, he just reaches out, gives the water to the runner, takes the water bottle back. And a pet peeve that I have with a lot of teams is when you hand a water bottle to somebody, don't let them just take 3 drinks and throw it down. This isn't their backyard. This is not home. This isn't the police station where they just throw things on the ground. We bring in a crew of people specifically from the high school, from the school there at Baker, to follow along our race course and pick up our water bottles. And they do. And you can find us the easy detective possible. Just follow those water bottles. You can find us. because guys throw them down. Don't do that. So the vehicle is there. Driver's driving, listening to the FRS. Observer is watching the runner. And what he's looking for in that runner is, do they start the same way and run the same way all 5 miles? A person begins to have a problem. The very first time you see the problem is in the way they run. I told you I recognize one runner just by looking at him. The observer is watching the runner, and as they begin to do something different in the way in which they run, tells you there's a problem occurring here, and it's only getting profoundly bigger and bigger. I will spend a great deal of the time at the next meeting talking about what to recognize in the medical issues of a runner. And they're easy ones to look at. Seem remarkably simple when you look at them and talk about them, but they're right there. The way in which they run, which is their form, their color. A person changes color like a chameleon. When they become dehydrated and they begin to have a problem, they change color. Then the next one is they change ability to make cognitive sense. They can't talk. If you ask them a simple question, where are you? What time is it? What's your name? They'll stumble over those answers. They can still run. They can still move, and they do. But then they begin to weave. The next step in that progression of problem is they become very disoriented, argumentative, combat, fight you. Even if you stopped them, they would fight you. Boom, pass out. Steps along the line of medical problems. If you put somebody in that follow vehicle on the probable hot section of the race course, which is start line to stage 7, that's the hot section of the race. If you put somebody in that follow vehicle who cannot handle the runner, I'm talking about by size, because ultimately, if the runner has a problem, the vehicle stops, the alternate runner gets out, grabs a baton, and continues on by themselves. The follow vehicle is now looking at this runner, and what do? Can you make a 911 call to an ambulance? You don't have a means of doing that, and we don't have a means of listening to you. So that's out of the question. Now what do? Are you a medical professional? I don't think so. So you can't take any action yourself. The only thing you're left to do is scoop them up, put them in the follow vehicle, and take them to the very next exchange point where there is a crew of medical people, including a doctor. That is your job. If I told you in that follow vehicle, stand up a second. Okay, your job is pick him up. Dead weight, he's unconscious. One guy's not going to pick him up. 2 guys would struggle at it. He's going to take all 3 of you to lift him up. Thanks. Lift him up and put him in that vehicle. But that's what you have to do, and as quickly as possible. Time is critical here. You've heard the term golden hour. That's how much time you have between the time he passes out and the time he gets medical attention. You have 1 hour, and the time is ticking real fast. So you can't stand there and look at him. He's not going to spring back up. Pouring water on him does no good. He can't drink water. He's unconscious. And you've scared the life out of whoever you put in that car. One thing to watch runners, one runner after another. All of a sudden you've got a problem. Who do you have in the follow vehicle? So real important, who do you assign that task to in the first part of this race, where it's very important because medical issues happen in the first 7 stages of the race. The latter 7 stages of the race, no. Even the last 10 stages of the race, we just have so few problems, I almost have no one there. But those other ones, we do, and so you gotta be prepared for this. So again, who do you put in there? When do you make a shift change? Like work, when do you make a shift change? After 4 stages? After 5 stages? After 6 stages? How long can you have that driver in there driving at 2 miles an hour or 4 miles an hour? How long can you expect a person to handle this and handle it effectively? Now you're going to make a transition. You're going to bring a separate crew of drivers, another observer out to that follow vehicle. Where do they come from? Where do they meet that follow vehicle? What time? How do they make this transition? That car that's coming out to make a change of drivers, the drivers get out, get in that car, drive back to Las Vegas. Now you're talking a rented car or someone's personal car. Lay out the schedule. When do you do this? Who does this? Are they dependable? You've got to be rock solid, dependable people. You're going to tell somebody, we're going to make a change at 1 o'clock in the morning and Joe over here is going to meet you at 1 o'clock at this location. Well, they're there at 1 o'clock, but Joe's not there. 1:10, 1:15, they have to leave, they continue on. An hour late, Joe shows up. Alcohol on his breath. You put him in that car? Mm-mm. No. Now you're mad at him because you're going to have to change something else. So all of this happens. You've got to kind of think about this. So the follow crew, driver, observer, alternate. Now you put an alternate in the car, he sits there for 3 hours, 4 hours, never runs. Here comes a fresh crew, another alternate. He gets in the car and he drives back. He never ran in the race. That's a chance an alternate takes sometimes. But you've got a fresh alternate, now they're in the car and they handle 4 or 5 stages until you bring in a third vehicle. Do you have enough in your crew of support personnel to change 3 times? That's what you have to look at. Do you have enough? Do you have 3 drivers, 3 observers, 3 to 4 alternates? What do you have? Design your plan around that. Figure that you're not going to be able to make the change of drivers at the exchange points. It just isn't possible there. Too many people, too many cars. They couldn't find each other. And again, no cell service, so Joe can't call Fred in the middle of stage 10 and say, where are you? You have to pick a location that both of them can find. Follow cars moving at 4 miles an hour. They're not going very fast. But you have to find that location that they can meet, change drivers. Person's in that car for 3 hours, 4 hours, slowly moving along. Now all of a sudden, nature calls. They go, okay, what do we do now? The very first year we had this race, we had no porta potties out there. None, 0. It was a desert, that's it. Well, we've come a long way since then. So exchange points have up to 10 to 12 porta potties at every single exchange point. You can stop for a moment. Move to the extreme right, stop for a moment, let your passenger out, let the driver out, let the alternate out. Run over, excuse yourself to get in line first, get in that porta potty, get out, get on your way.
So does the runner stop at that point?
No, the runner continues on. The runner's never going to stop. Does a runner need absolute support right behind them every inch of the way? No. Now, they got to use their brains. They can't run in the middle of the road because I'm going to shoo them to the right if they do. They have to run to that extreme right. The follow vehicle is there simply to provide sustenance to the runner and protection for the runner. But they can run with that by themselves for a little while, even at night. And I have a lot of runners who say, I don't run at night. Well, why not? I don't like the dark. I don't run at night. I'll run the daytime. Okay. Try to accommodate them for some crazy reason. They're wearing a flashing vest if they're at night. Can they see the ground? A little bit. You have to trust that the ground is even. You've got to run without looking down. I've run with a lot of people, and I find those that look down all the time. I said, what are you looking for? There's no money on the ground. If there's no money on the ground, don't look down. Well, I want to look for, the terrain. I said, unless we're running on a trail where there's roots or rocks or holes in the ground, trust that the asphalt is flat enough that your feet are going to adjust to it. Don't look down. But you couldn't look down in the dark anyway. So they got a flashing vest and a baton, and they're running along. They can wait a few minutes while the driver takes care of nature, then get back at him. If it's a long period of time, they've had a flat tire, now you're in a spot. one of our monitors and rule enforcers, if they see a runner by themselves, no follow vehicle in sight at all, they're going to scoot in behind that runner and they're going to say, hey, where's your follow vehicle? Well, you know, they stop back there to go potty. They'll be right there. Okay, we'll follow you while they wait. So they do. If the guy says, you know what, they're broke down, engine froze, flat tire, some other kind of catastrophe, then they're going to go, okay, what's your plan? They're changing right now. They're outfitting all of the stuff that was in the follow vehicle. They're putting it to a support vehicle. They're changing vehicles. They'll be here in a little while. Then again, the same thing. The rule enforcer is going to say, we'll follow you, protect you, do what we can for you until they come up and meet you. It happens once in a while, but this is how it works. So it takes some time. Look through the data that I've given you with some steps, ideas. Some of it's a little dated, but most of it's pretty accurate with what to do about a shuttle vehicle, what to do with a follow vehicle, and how you change crews. Some of it's even to the point of a format. This page is a format, follow vehicle, crew instructions. I got all this, again, from different teams when I said, hey, what do you do? You're a well-organized team. How do you function? So they sent me these bits and pieces of stuff that I've given you. Just no point in trying to reinvent the wheel. So they give you ideas of how to do this. Name of the support person, follow vehicle, crew 1. Sometimes pretty simple information. Fill up gas before you leave Las Vegas. Baker has maybe 3 different gas stations in Baker. You fill up in Baker. That puts you on the road with your follow vehicle that should be able to drive 120 miles at 5 miles an hour with 1 tank of gas. You should not need to stop. If you've planned it poorly and all of a sudden you look at your gas tank and you're at a quarter tank and you're a mile away from Shoshone, then be prepared to pay about $1 a gallon more for fuel in Shoshone. That's what they charge. You'll be happy to pay it rather than run out of gas. This is a plan, follow vehicle 1, 0700, 1500, and stages 11 to 13. These are plans that teams use in setting up their follow vehicle and the schedule for the follow vehicle. We convoy. Your follow vehicle will be required to report to a check-in area 3 miles south of a start line. That's their first location they report to. They'll be there, and if you were to watch it, you would see all of these teams parked there, and they're putting this big puzzle together. They've taken their vehicle, they've taken all of their equipment for the follow vehicle, they've driven to that location, they've checked in, and now they're putting the pieces together. The sign on the top, the light on the top, the windows, the side marks, the thing in the back window, everything. They're putting this whole puzzle together, they're parked right there. They've checked in. It seems every year, no matter how hard we try to get this information to teams, a follow vehicle will be in the wrong place. How they get to the wrong place, I'm not quite sure, but they're in the wrong place because the radio call goes from the check-in to the start line saying Team 171, a 1500 start, never reported here. So the runner for Team 151 that's sitting there 15 minutes away from a start cannot run if the follow vehicle has not reported. In 1 year, we kept a person there because their follow vehicle hadn't reported. And so he's sitting in the dirt and I'm talking to him. This person is the chief of police of that agency, scheduled to run leg 1. And the team follow vehicle wasn't where it was supposed to be. Now he wasn't real mad, not with us. Now what he did when he got back to the department, I don't know, but they sure screwed over the wrong guy. Their follow vehicle had gone to the wrong location. They'll go to check-in first. They'll go over their self-checked off list of all of their equipment, Does this work? Lights work, everything works. They'll be convoyed from that position 3 miles south to 3 miles north of the start line, where they now stage. And each flight of about 30 teams a flight are staged at that location, waiting for the runner who starts at the start line to run those 3 miles without any support. No support vehicle. Our motors are out there helping a little bit, but there's no support vehicle. The only thing they have is water stations every mile. So they could get water every mile. They go 1 mile to 2 miles to 3 miles, and their follow vehicle is there. So we get that kind of situation. So look at this to see quite how other teams have done it in the past. At the end of the race, as I mentioned in there, at the end of the race, the follow vehicle will come into the hotel driveway at the west gate, and right where there's a taxi waiting area, they'll stop for a moment, the observer gets out, run plan in their hand, everything that happened, all of the runners that ran, all of the changes that might have occurred. They'll bring that into the awards finish line area, turn it into our officials, and now you're done. I've given you a handout that was done by a friend of mine, Pat Conley, that does a pretty good job with where do you put your runners? How do you make the assignments? I mentioned to you at the very beginning that when I was a team captain for trying to win the race team, it was simple to me. Do you want to win? If you want to win, stick around. If you just want to jog and have fun, there's the door, leave now. Once you're in the room and that's what you want to do, it's not a democracy. I choose who run what's legs. If you're the best runner on the team, you're Scott Langford, you're running 14. Hands down, that's it. That's the hardest leg in the race course, the longest leg in the race course, that's what you're going to do. And he accepts that. So when you look at this, this begins to tell you where to try to place runners depending on their ability. If you're trying to do well, I can tell you right now, there are 7 very tough legs in this race. Do you have 7 very good runners? If you do, you've covered the base of the really hard legs in this race, and you'll do well. If you have 2, you're going to struggle, because that means you're going to give an average runner a very hard leg in this race, and they're going to struggle. I'll give you an example. Stage 7 is a difficult leg in this race. It's a 10K, and it's a tough leg. To run that leg with a person who runs a 50-minute 10K means they're going to struggle. And instead of running 50 minutes over that leg 7 10K distance, they're going to run 60 minutes, because that's how hard it is. Got a big hill in it. So this is how it is. If that's all you've got in really quality runners, and you do with the best you can. If you're an absolute slow 10-minute a mile team, you could put their names in a bag and pull them out, because it wouldn't matter who you put where. A 10-minute miler runs 10 minutes a mile uphill. They run 10 minutes a mile downhill. They have one speed. And that's
based on how many different start times is there?
There are 9 start times. 9 start times.
So you mentioned like if we put in 20 hours, but we're at an 18.5-hour pace or 19-hour pace, that you'll stop us. Does that mean our time stop or?
No. It just means you get a rump chewing for giving me a bad time. Your incoming runner says, who do I give the baton to? Nobody. Put the baton right there. Go take 5. The outgoing runner comes up and says, well, I want to run now. I said, no, I'm holding your team for 20 minutes. Come back in 15 minutes.
Does your time stop though?
No, your time will be adjusted, but here is the part. In the list of equipment for your follow vehicle, you need a stopwatch. 1 stopwatch. The stopwatch is not there for you to time the runners. We'll do that for you. The stopwatch is there for you to time a delay. And the delay is me stopping you. But your team is going to have to punch the stopwatch when the runner comes up to hand the baton and there's nobody to hand it to. I've stopped you. I'm going to radio to your people, I'm going to do this. because I'll be right there with an FRS saying, hey, Team 29, I'm stopping your outgoing runner. When you reach this point, start your stopwatch. When he goes again, write down the time delay. Because on your sheet, on your run log, it says delay time. 9 minutes and 52 seconds delayed by Chuck Foot, stage 16. Okay, this will be removed from the runner of 16. It'll be removed from your overall team time, that delay. And again, if I have to do it once, okay, it happens. If I do it 2 or 3 times, shame on you for giving me bad time.
What is a bad time? Is the 1 hour difference bad?
In the middle, it would make no difference. If you start at 12 o'clock noon and you're wrong by an hour, either way, it probably doesn't make any difference. You're in the middle and it just gets absorbed by it all. It's the very, very early start times, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and even 10 o'clock. If you're wrong by 2 hours, then you've screwed me up. One team in this race some time ago ran 24 hours and 6 minutes or something like that. And I said, oh, look, don't ever come back. You know, I love you, but 24 hours is too long. You need to train a little bit anyway. 24 hours is like 15 minutes a mile, like walking the whole thing. And I said, we can't have that. Do a better job. So it really matters, again, to the very early starts. If I see a brand new team and you give me a time of 22 hours and 50 minutes, I may call you and say, really? Are you that slow? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I have 2 or 3 people that are going to walk the whole thing. Okay, I'll buy that. But again, there are teams that, I want to say it's accidental, but maybe accidental on purpose, that they want to be the lead team out there. This is a handicap start. Being the lead team out there, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're going to win. It doesn't mean anything. But if they want to hear their number read over and over again, because we'll read that out, first team at stage 6 is 129. Okay. That doesn't mean anything, just means that the first person's there. If there were an 8 o'clock start, I would expect that. But if they're begin to get too quick, that's when we stop them.
Are you ready, Chuck?
Oh, they are? Okay, Tony. Before we escape over there, I've given you what I explained in the room out there, all the due dates. If you haven't done your communications form, by gosh, guys, get on that as quick as possible. And I mean, we're talking hours here to get on that and get it in. Otherwise, get the other information to me as quickly as you know it, but certainly by the due date. I'm available. Tony's available. Questions pop up. We'll go out here and talk a little bit about the follow vehicle and get to the specifics of how it's put together and outfitted. And then from there, you're free to go. So I certainly appreciate everybody coming out here, and hopefully the weather is reasonable out there. A little chilly maybe. Get a cup of coffee before you take off outside. We'll see you out there on the track. It's right out here, just down the stairs and right across.
All right, I want to thank Glendale PD for coming out, bringing out their follow vehicle for us. John over here has done it for a number of years. Will answer all the questions you have, how to set it up, change of drivers, all that kind of good stuff. So I'll let John take over.
Thank you. Well, I am from Glendale, John Gilberson. I've been the support team captain for over a decade, so I'm pretty familiar with the car, how to set it up, what's required. I brought Craig Hinckley with me here for mechanical questions you may have. He directs our Civic Center garage, and he helps every year with this. So I'm going to take a quick, I'll stay here in view, but just kind of take a trip around the car. The required things that you have to have are numbers on all 4 corners. And I put it on this door because even though the door is normally closed, when we're working the race, this door is almost always open, which puts that number in that corner like it's supposed to be. We're not number 9 this year. I wish we were. I just picked that because I got to scrape it off, and there's fewer numbers when I get back home. Number on the front windshield, a number on the corresponding corner over there on the side, and then another number here, number 9, on the back window. In addition, they're still requiring a red or a reflective red or yellow sticker with your number on the other side so that it really stands out in the night. And the runner ahead sign is mandatory. The way that it sits on this van, it's magnetic, but it only sits partially on the metal. So we secure it with duct tape as well, but that's a mandatory sign. Mandatory beacon up on top. An optional sign. For many years we used a full-size van with a metal sign we had to prop up on the roof, and then we had these two amber beacons down here on both ends of the van so you could clearly see it. But this takes care of the whole thing. The sign was purchased here prior to last year's race, I think it was. It's lit from inside, so at night your teammates can see it. The beacon was installed by Craig up on top, covers 360. It's a nice option to have. Optional, these are old magnetic signs, but we identify our city when we're rolling down the racetrack with Glendale Police. I think that is it for required outside equipment. This follow vehicle checklist you'll find on the website, and you've probably already seen it from your meetings here. I take about 10 copies of this with me. When I start in Glendale before we head for Las Vegas, I make sure everything on this list that's required and optional is in this van. And then when we set up on race day, I make sure everything that is still in the van, and those are the things that are down here. We take a lot of other things for creature comfort, but we have ice chest for water. We've got the required reflective signs, required chains, required fire extinguisher, and then these things go up front in the van with us, and they have everything else. Flashlights, pins, batteries for the flashlights. We bring plenty of this because everybody on your team on the course has to put your number on their car. So we bring plenty of these shoe polishes along, and that is our first aid kit. And it's got everything that we should have in there if somebody goes down. The only two things I didn't bring with me today is 10 gallons of water. I usually take 2 5-gallon containers, put them in the back, and have plenty of water. But for the runners individually, we throw a couple of cases in here so that everybody gets their own bottle and you don't run out. You know, the race is timed automatically, but we always keep 3 stopwatches, one for the entire race, so it never gets shut off during the course. And then we alternate between runners with these other 2. And we kind of keep a rough tally of how fast we're going on the race course, even though the race is keeping official time. And if you want to send a message to somebody as you're going down the road, for instance, the runner, we keep a board and a marker for that. Up in front would also be the FRS radio, so that you can hear the race officials talking to you. You can talk to other participants as you pass, etc. I don't, what am I forgetting, Craig?
I think you covered most of the things.
Yeah.
Can you talk about when you get to Baker, what you do there, how you fuel up and all that stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So the van pretty much goes up plain, and we dress it up in Baker. We've got a couple of meeting places, so the runners on the first few legs usually meet us there, and we put everything on, and then head for the starting, for the van inspection point. The last thing to go on is that sign, because as you're going down the highway, we don't want to lose it, and I've seen it happen. We do top it off in Baker, because we want to make sure we got a full tank to get all the way through the course. We pick up our ice in Baker, so get plenty of ice, throw it in the ice chest. Yeah, that's about it. The team kind of meets there. The first crew in the shuttle meets down at Baker, and they take it from there to this inspection point, and then after they're inspected, they take it up to the starting line and wait for the runners to come out. It is a good drive from Baker to the starting point, so you got to leave time for that.
Any emergencies you've encountered over the years and what you did and how you handled it?
I'll tell you on the race course, yes. We've had a couple of guys go down significantly due to the heat and the dehydration, and been airlifted out. One guy is a frequent flyer on the emergency service up there. He's retired now, but we've had him go down. So we've had to drag him in and head off to the next relay point so we can get him up to the med base and get him treated. It's real. I mean, that problem is real. You see that every year. Every year, the first part of the race, especially when it's light, it's hot. Yeah. Not a lot of other things. Nobody's gone down that I can think of and really injured themselves by tripping. It can get very cold up there, very cold at night, so you need to prepare for that. The way we run our crew is a driver, a timekeeper, and hopefully one other person up here just to be we also have the alternate runner in here. So we run them in stages of 4. So about 1 through 5, is one crew, and then legs 6 through 10 is another crew, and so on and so forth. And we try to trade them out in places that's advantageous for us and the race, so we don't get in the way. And we run them through the night that way. So it's about a 6 or 7 hour shift per crew. So everybody has to hit the bathroom before they start, drink as little water and coffee as you can when you're out there. But
if someone does have to go to the bathroom, it's okay to stop at the exchange point, have that person go relieve themselves at the porta potty. The runner will be by himself for a short period of time, maybe 5 minutes. They'll get back in the car and catch up with the runner. So, it's not, we like to have a full vehicle behind the runner at all times, but we do understand circumstances like that.
You can always ask another vehicle though?
Yeah, if we see it, we'll get a motor officer behind him or another vehicle to watch him while we're away.
Everybody here is first time, pretty much. So when you get your volunteers, your crew members to come out and drive and take care of the runner, you're going to approach your runner every so often, offer him water, make sure everything's okay. Your runner may be overtaking another crew, another team. You may be overtaken by another team. Those are all things that are in the rule book, how to do that, how to safely pass, and so forth. And the one thing you don't want to do is get penalties. If you get penalties, you lose time. You lose time, you lose position. Maybe you get thrown out. So urge the people who show up, and I know Chuck's covered this, no alcohol in the cars, no alcohol in the course. Make sure your drivers, no alcohol in them when they start working. And make sure they know the rules of the road as far as the race, it pertains to the race, because there are certain ways to pass. And listening to that radio, if the race officials call you on your FRS, you got to answer that thing. So make sure they're diligent about reading the rule book before they just jump in the van and figure, well, I got this. So, because that's important. I don't know. I think over the past years we've probably earned a few penalties. We've had some reversed, but I sweat it. I was the road captain out there in charge of the support crew for all these years, and I'm out there all night long sweating away. Come on, don't earn demerits, especially me. But any questions for me at all? Yes, sir.
A real quick question. I know it's probably outlined in the rules, but the reflective numbers only goes on that side?
They've gone back and forth. But
yeah, the reflective number, in this case number 9, is going to go right here in the vehicle. Okay. It's the only vehicle that requires a reflective number, because this number, while you can see in the daytime, you could not see this when you come up behind them. And it's a matter of both you can read the time, you can read the name, but not everybody has a sign like that. Smitty, the guy that was in the room there, can make you a sign if you wish to have one. I've seen some really elaborate ones that the wind just knocked over. So it's a breeze here, but out in the desert it's 40 miles an hour and just blow anything right over. The other part of this is important, because I can't really say this while I'm in the gym, because it's being taped, and anybody can listen in on bakertovegas.com and listen to the tape and hear me say this. Take this number off when you're in Las Vegas and the race is over, because a couple bad things can happen. All the crooks in that town, which is more than a couple, see this and immediately know you're a cop. And if I get into this car, there's going to be a gun in there. That's the first thing they know. So they're going to break into your car when they see that number. The other is, on your way back from Las Vegas, back to town, back to the civilization here, the CHP are going to see this. And they're going to say, Now, if you're obeying the law, they don't care. If you're going 75 and a 50, then they care. And they go, I got to pull over another cop. Or if I just shine him on and let him go, what's everybody else going to say about me doing my job? So it's a big catch-22 here. Take the numbers off once the race is over. Tell all your team to take them off, remove the number. Save you headache. The big,
What's the specifications on the caution runner ahead sign? Is there a certain size?
Yeah, we pretty much say this size right here.
So there's not a guideline of what we have to follow?
No, not really. Just the caution. And again, Smitty in there will make you a magnetic sign for $15 or something like this. Stick it on there.
And then only the numbers required, the name isn't required to change.
The name is not required, because most of the time out there, I'm just looking at numbers. Yeah. Hey 9, move over to the right. Hey 9, get behind your runner. Hey 9, your light's off. Now, I didn't hear you mention it, but the extra lights are a godsend. because you'll buy a Kojak light like this, and you'll have it out there, and you'll plug it in the cigarette lighter, and poof, lights burned out. Now you're going, oh, what the hell do we do now? We don't have a backup. Plenty of teams like this carry a backup. So on your FRSs, you're behind another team, and you say, hey, our Kojak light blew up. Do you have a spare? Yes, we do. Plug it back in, away you go. Because if you don't, the motors come in right behind you and say, where's your light? Well, it burned out. They write a penalty. Penalty comes into the war room. What happened to you? Our light burned out. We don't know. It just went out. So save you some trouble. Got a question?
The new hockey puck light LED lights for emergency lights on the roadway, they have magnets on them. Is that legal?
I haven't seen one of those. The big thing about the strobe light up here, and it can be like this, or it can be in that fashion right there. No red lights, no blue lights. Because a lot of people will actually bring out a unit. And I have to tell them, cover the red lights, cover the blue lights. You can't have those on the roadway. You're not working out here today. So cover those up. The big thing is 360 degrees. It's one thing for us to see this right now. It's another thing to turn all the lights off. You could see this because those lights are at the top of the whole vehicle. If you put a great big beautiful Glendale Police Department sign right here, you'd block that to see it from the rear. So again, 360 degrees all around that follow vehicle. You want that flashing amber light, strobe light to work. Anything else about follow vehicles? This is, like I said, this is the best vehicle to use. I saw some vehicles out there last year and I had to rewrite the rules to say you can't have that. That's a big cargo van right there. That's about the biggest van you can take out there as a follow vehicle. Because pretty soon you can't see around it, you can't see over it, and it's too wide. And they can't drive a vehicle in that shoulder lane without hitting the rumble strip. And since they don't want to drive in that rumble strip, they move over to the left and they straddle it. Well, now they're in lane 2. And they're screwing up traffic. So something too big, too wide. What do they call them? Spinners? What do they call that vehicle today? Sprinters. Sprinters. Those are too big. And several teams had them out there last year. It's nice and comfortable. I got that. But they're way too big. So I had to say, no, none of those. No diesels. Once in a while I get somebody say, well, we're going to bring out a brand new, Galpin Ford gave us this beautiful turbocharged diesel. I said, no, sorry, no diesels. Stink and no good. How good they say they are, they still stink and they're no good. So no diesels as a follow vehicle. You got it as a transport vehicle. Placement of motorhomes on the race course. Command post operations on the race course. If you want to do this, halfway through the race course, stage 11 is the town of Pahrump. Get yourself a hotel room, get yourself a motorhome park there, park a motorhome there. That's your central point of putting people out towards Baker on the race course, towards the mountain pass, whichever you're going to do. That's a place to do that. Towards Las Vegas, you really don't need it. So you bring a motorhome out there if that's what you choose. You just can't use them as a follow vehicle. You can't use a motorhome as a follow vehicle. Now it's way too big. Anything else about follow vehicles, guys? You can see all the equipment that comes with it. I don't think you've ever had a flat tire, right?
No, but I'll tell you one thing I forgot to mention. We take this seat out, this center right-hand seat, for ease of getting in and out of the thing, and ease of reaching out to your runner with water if somebody in the back is doing it. So we've got basically five seats in the van still available. And he's right, we had a van like that for many years. We lost that van and ended up with this, and I was like, wow, I wish we'd have kept this or had this thing years ago, because it really is the perfect size. It fits, it's easy to drive, they're economical. So, and we do exactly as Chuck mentioned. We have a little bit of a CP in Pahrump, and I would say probably if you haven't got a room in Pahrump now, call immediately if you want to have something. If you want to have a little command post there, I imagine they get booked up. We also have a couple of motorhomes on the course in the more remote areas where they can fit off the side of the road and don't interfere with the race. It gives us a chance to have our future runners for the next few legs check in 2 hours before their run time, and then they get shuttled down to their relay point where they're starting their leg an hour before run time, and that way we don't have, hopefully there's no last minute problems. So we do have that, and it's nice to keep track of them if you can afford it, if you can get volunteers. Some agencies I know go to their local car dealers and say, hey, how would you like to donate a car for a weekend and support your agency? Maybe that's an option, but it really is it's a great vehicle for that purpose.
The other equipment that comes with it, I don't know if you have this in here, but a strap, a towing strap.
You got me.
Okay. Stop wall. My buddy, the CHP guy, was kidding around in there. Said, what do you call it? He calls it a hell box. Quite figured that term out yet, but he calls all of this stuff here. And he says, you need a tow strap. And I said, what for? He says, because somebody is always going to be stuck in the sand. You get the tow strap out, pull them out. Okay, makes sense. Don't go in those soft areas. You can't just pull off the road and say, I'm going to pull off the road and stop right here. Because you'll all of a sudden go whoop, right down to the axle, and there you are. And I've seen them stuck out there, and there they are digging away, trying to plow out of the sand. Desert is unforgiving. Unforgiving, you know. Just don't make that mistake. You'll be okay. Anything else I can help you with, or the Glendale can help you with, guys? Good. We're good to go. I will contact directly, me to you, any brand new team in the race, never run before team. What I'm going to say to you is, here is your time in Las Vegas, in front of the Westgate Hotel parking lot there, for your follow vehicle to be inspected, and this is what we're going to expect. We're going to expect you to park your car, get all your gear out, put your light on, turn the light on, do the headlights work, do the tail lights work. You'd be surprised. Every now and then somebody comes out there and says, well, hell, I never checked those tail lights, and they don't work. So everything will get checked, all of the equipment will get examined, you get the stamp of approval, and you're good to go. So be sure that when I send you this, it's good with you, you'll be there, and we'll work with you from there.
One other thing I forgot, two things. Number one is we've got rolls of duct tape in all these boxes. I've got one more in the back. Take the duct tape for the signs and anything else. If you have these wires that go to the beacons, you want to tape them down so they're not flopping around. The other thing we did, I think you still require it, we taped the top half of the headlights. Yeah, so if you look at the headlights, they got duct tape along the top half just to keep the glare down for the race officials, the other team drivers, and things like that. So
yeah, the teams that come, driving that vehicle at night, comes into an exchange point, and all the officials there are blinded by the headlights coming in, they can't see. And so it's one of those things we try to do. You tape off the top of the headlight and cut down a little bit on that. It's enough for you to see when you're driving. You're only moving 5 miles an hour.
yeah.
Good. Appreciate you coming out, folks. Have a safe trip back home. You got your t-shirts, got your coins, got all of that. You're ahead of most people. Any questions? Shoot them to me. Sure.
For our Facebook page. There you go, Lieutenant. Up in